Chapter 2698. Sweep everything with one move. You're undoubtedly the strongest heaven ultimate god I've seen since stepping foot in the Danyang continent. Unfortunately, you're still unqualified to kill me. Not only that, but you also need to leave behind your life here today. Jian Wushuang's loud noise reverberated across the entire void. The experts looking at the battle from the surrounding area were completely amazed. This Su Han, Sheng Long, and the purple dress house master also stared at Jian Wushuang with a hint of expectation in their eyes. On the other hand, Fo Wu had a cold gaze in his eyes. How can you shamelessly brag? Fo Wu once again carried out his attack with the battle saber at hand after shouting. Although he still had a humongous red sun behind him, the saber skill he just used felt like the setting sun. It had a sense of beauty under the autumn breeze. Jian Wushuang glanced at Fo Wu, and the 9 infernal crimson divine swords around him once again integrated into a huge black divine sword. This black divine sword once again came rushing outward with shocking power. This is useless. Although your sword formation is very strong, it's only a joke to me, yelled Fo Wu coldly. Really? Jian Wushuang only lightly smiled before raising his palm and pointed toward the void Fo Wu was located. Unlimited powers of space-time law came sweeping over with his finger pointing. Space-time divine technique. A finger-pointing heavenly technique. Fo Wu's figure paused in the middle of the void without any warnings. He remained in his attacking position with his saber, with the humongous red sun still behind him. However, his actions had completely paused. The space-time paused. It was the A finger-pointing heavenly technique. If Jian Wushuang performed that skill at his full capacity, nobody under the Grand Ultimate God realm could withstand his current strength, unless that person was an expert with an extremely high understanding of space-time law. Even Fo Wu could not do it. He was completely caught in the stagnation of space-time. The space-time stagnation only lasted for a short moment and less than the time for a person to blink. However, that amount of time was very crucial to experts. It could be seen that the black divine sword Jian Wushuang controlled was like a huge mountain-sized drill directly attacking Fo Wu's divine body without any obstructions. Fo Wu's space-time had just recovered to normal before he was immediately hit by that horrible attack. Even though his body managed to endure the attack, he immediately vomited a mouthful of blood at that moment, as the front section of his divine body had sunken in. His figure was immediately thrown backward like a kite with broken strings. You haven't died from that attack? It looks like your physical protective abilities aren't weak. Jian Wushuang smiled indifferently. Fear was written all over Fo Wu's face as he finally stabilized himself. He could feel the wounds he had suffered were quite serious. However, what truly frightened him was the technique Jian Wushuang unleashed just moments ago. He had no idea what happened as the sword formation was some distance away from him, before it suddenly knocked onto his divine body. He could not respond nor had the time to block the attack. He was instantaneously wounded badly, which greatly damaged his true strength. What had happened? What skills did Su Han use? Fo Wu was in shock. The unknown was always the most horrifying. He was horrified because he had no idea what Jian Wushuang did moments ago. After all, that attack had managed to wound him badly, and he would die if that happened 1 or 2 more times. However, the black divine sword once again came toward him under Jian Wushuang's control. Escape, I have to escape. He'll die if I don't escape. Those thoughts immediately appeared in Fo Wu's heart, and quickly took over his mind. It was his intuition that he achieved after experiencing many extreme battles and near-death escapades, before achieving peak heaven ultimate god realm. He also deeply believed in his intuition. Therefore, he did not hesitate at that moment, and immediately turned around before running backward at his fastest speed. He opted to escape. The last time he ran away was in a one-on-one battle, due to coming across a grand ultimate god. However, he could only escape at that moment despite facing someone who was a realm lower than him. The people around them were stunned by that scene, as they were observing the battle. However, Jian Wushuang was unwilling when he saw that Fo Wu wanted to escape. Jian Wushuang could be seen raising his hand once again, and pointed to the void, where Fo Wu with his finger. A finger-pointing heavenly technique. That technique required an extremely huge amount of divine power to activate it. An ordinary peak heaven ultimate god would not be able to use that technique for a second time after forcefully doing it the first time, even if they had quite a huge solid of divine power. However, Jian Wushuang was different as his divine power was as vast as an ocean. The divine power he used was not even a tenth of his total powers, even when using that technique, enabling him to activate that technique several times in a battle. It was his second time activating the technique. At that moment the same scene unfolded once again. Fo Wu was once again paused in the middle of the void. He remained in his escaping posture, with no changes to his terrified facial expression. He had completely paused there, while the black divine sword that kept following behind him was not affected at all. It once again attacked Fo Wu like a flash of black lightning. At that moment, Fo Wu's divine body could not persist any longer and started falling apart. How's this possible? His space-time had already returned to normal before Fo Wu died. He saw that he was once again attacked, and also noticed he was losing his vitality at a crazed speed. He had a horrifying expression on his face, and a heart filled with disbelief. However, his life had been completely cut off in the end. Fo Wu, the famous top 10 peak heaven ultimate gods in the Danyang continent, and second only to the Star Fort Master, was killed on the spot. A finger-pointing heavenly technique. This technique is really strong. Jian Wushuang exclaimed uncontrollably when he saw Fo Wu was killed. Regardless of having a heaven ultimate god's strength, even if that person could enter the top 10, top 5, or even top 3 positions in the Danyang continent, they would not be able to withstand that attack as long as that person was not good at the space-time law. He could wipe out 99% of those heaven ultimate gods with just that technique alone. Although Fo Wu was very strong, he was not proficient at the space-time law, and was therefore also included in the 99% range. Fo Wu was killed within 2 moves without any chance of struggling. Jian Wushuang did not have time to use his mini skills as a result. Jian Wushuang also exhaled softly after killing Fo Wu, before slowly looking over at the Corpse Palace and Star Fort's experts. Fo Wu is dead. The rest of you are next. Chapter 2699. Time for our talk. The surrounding void was silent. The many experts including Shur-Imo and Gu-Imo from the Corpse Palace, the two Peak Heaven ultimate gods from the Star Fort, Sheng Long, and the Purple Dress House Master, had widened eyes with disbelief written all over their faces. Dead? Fo Wu died? Fo Wu, the top 10 Heaven ultimate gods in the Danyang continent, was killed by Su Han? They were slightly stunned as huge waves of emotions surged through the bottoms of their hearts. At the same time, they had deep doubts about the occurrence. What are those skills Su Han used just now? They could see the scene moments ago. They saw Jian Wushuang pointing from a distance, and Fo Wu rendered unable to move. His immobility had allowed Jian Wushuang to directly kill him. Such a scene had occurred twice, with Fo Wu heavily wounded the first, and directly killed in the second time. However, they had no idea what skill Jian Wushuang had used. They also had no idea how Jian Wushuang managed to stop an extremely strong Peak Heaven ultimate god from moving in such a short amount of time. However, they knew that the technique Jian Wushuang used was horrifying. At that moment, Fo Wu is dead. All of you'll be next. Jian Wushuang's cold and emotionless voice could be heard echoing between heaven and earth. Corpse Palace experts' faces including Shur-Imo and Gu-Imo immediately darkened. How could they block his attack if even Fo Wu could not withstand Jian Wushuang's techniques, and was directly killed? Boom! The violent golden divine power once again surged as Jian Wushuang's aura seemed as though it had reached the heavens. His eyes looked at the Corpse Palace experts with a strong intent to kill. Attack together! Shur-Imo shouted as a huge amount of death law strength crazily burst outward. He wanted to gather the 4 Peak Heaven ultimate gods' powers and work together with Gu-Mo and the 2 Star Fort's Peak Ultimate Heaven gods to fight Jian Wushuang. Gu-Mo and the other 2 Star Fort's Peak Heaven ultimate gods also wanted to work together. However, Jian Wushuang pointed his finger again before the others could approach him. A finger-pointing heavenly technique. It was the same technique, but he used it on Shur-Imo at that moment. Fo Wu had died, and the strongest person was none other than the Corpse Palace's Shur-Imo. Hence Jian Wushuang naturally focused on him first. Even Fo Wu could not withstand that a finger-pointing heavenly technique. Although Shur-Imo had a high understanding of the death law, his understanding was not on space-time law. The space-time he was located immediately froze with him altogether and rendered Shur-Imo immobile. Meanwhile, Jian Wushuang's body suddenly shook. His figure appeared in front of the frozen Shur-Imo, as though he had teleported. He then waved his blood mountain sword. The sword was beautiful in a sad way. It was so beautiful that it could break a person's heart. There was even a hint of perplexity, which caused people to be intoxicated by it. The surrounding experts in the voids were uncontrollably attracted by that sword light, and soon intoxicated by it as it swept away. Although it was slightly uncomfortable, there was an endless aftertaste as though they had gotten drunk after having several drinks. The space-time sword technique's 7th form, Enchanted. Under the poignant and intoxicating sword technique, the frozen Shur-Imo did not have any capabilities to fight back, and was instantly beheaded. 2 space-time blade was activated at the same time, before smashing Shur-Mo's divine body into powder. Shur-Imo immediately died. Big brother! Gu-Imo stopped moving after shrieking loudly. He glanced at Jian Wushuang coldly, but turned to escape the next moment. He was not the only one, as even the 2 Star Fort's Peak Heaven ultimate gods had also started escaping with a crazed attitude. They knew clearly that if Shur-Mo was still alive, they might have an opportunity to fight against Jian Wushuang if the 4 of them worked together. However, only 3 were left after Shur-Mo's instantaneous death. There was no room for them to fight back anymore. Therefore, they could only escape. They did not have the time to even care for the Corpse Palace. Jian Wushuang's eyes turned cold when he saw the 3 of them escape. He then pointed his finger again. Among the 2 Star Fort's Peak Heaven ultimate gods, one of them was frozen on the spot without any warnings. Jian Wushuang's body slightly moved and easily killed that Peak Heaven ultimate god. However, Gu-Imo and the other Peak Heaven ultimate god had already escaped beyond the range of Jian Wushuang's secret technique, while he was killing the Peak Heaven ultimate god. Jian Wushuang could no longer chase after them, so he could only let the 2 of them escape. Those two had managed to escape, but their location was the corpse palace, which meant that Guemo had completely given up his territory. As for the corpse palace experts, they attacked once Jian Wushuang gave the order. Jian Wushuang had not given any orders. However, the Divine Sword Army commander Long Shan could perceive huge changes in the corpse city and knew there was a crazy battle between experts occurring. Hence he directly attacked without waiting for Jian Wushuang's orders. Unfortunately, they still arrived late. They saw many corpse palace experts surrendering to Jian Wushuang when they arrived. That scene caused many Divine Sword Army soldiers to be flabbergasted as they wondered what had happened. It looked like their alliance master had wiped out the corpse palace from their observation. However, their alliance master was alone. Long Shan, I'll hand these people in the corpse palace to you. In addition, send a message to ask Dong Shui and He Yin for personnel to take over the corpse palace's territory, said Jian Wushuang. Yes. Long Shan nodded solemnly. Jian Wushuang turned his line of sight after speaking over toward Sheng Long and the purple dress house master at the void beside them. It looks like it's time for our talk. Jian Wushuang smiled mysteriously. Chapter 2700. Subdued Sheng Long and the purple dress house master were very worried. Initially, when they realized the real purpose of the corpse palace and knew that they were trapped in the situation, they hoped that Jian Wushuang would show his strength and join them to fight the corpse palace. Surprisingly, Jian Wushuang took care of corpse palace by himself. Jian Wushuang had beheaded the corpse palace master on the spot, as well as Fo Wu, who was invited by the corpse palace master. His strength was too terrifying. Both Sheng Long and purple dress house master were taken aback. Jian Wushuang's strength was so terrifying that it sent chills when they saw the weird smile on Jian Wushuang's face. Sheng Long and the purple dress house master immediately had a bad premonition. They also recalled something. Although the corpse palace had great ambitions to swallow all of the forces, at least the corpse palace was more sensible and had not taken the initiative to act on any of the forces before. However, the Sword Alliance was obviously more ambitious than corpse palace, and with more sophisticated methods. The Sword Alliance had taken down 7 Absolute Palace and Bloodwater Gang one after another. It was a bloodbath. The Sword Alliance was going to bag Corpse Palace anytime soon. Would the Sword Alliance Master Su Han be willing to let the two of them, Sheng Long and Purple Dress House Master, go? Alliance Master Su Han, thank you for your action today in stopping the Corpse Palace from carrying out their treacherous tricks and allowing the Divine Dragon Pavilion to be safe. I'll prepare a generous gift and send it personally to the Sword Alliance to express my deepest gratitude after the incident, said Sheng Long. The Purple Dress House is also very thankful. The Purple Dress House will do our best to help if Alliance Master Su Han needs any help in the future, said the Purple Dress House Master. They dared not get on Jian Wushuang's wrong side and took the initiative to lower their pride in hopes that Jian Wushuang would let them go. Jian Wushuang sneered after hearing them out. I must say that the two of you are clever. You're going to be disappointed if you think that simply being thankful or a generous gift will settle the past bad blood between us. I'm not interested in listening to your words of gratitude and generous gifts. What I'm keen on are both your territories and experts. Sheng Long and the Purple Dress House Master were startled. As I've said before, I've no opinion on Palace Master Gumo's proposal. That's exactly what I wanted to do, to be precise. I also want to bring the third-rated forces together and form a brand new force. The only difference is that the new force must be called the Sword Alliance with me as the absolute leader. Do you both have any opinions? Jian Wushuang smiled. Sheng Long and the Purple Dress House Master were extremely furious, but dared not refute. Jian Wushuang's purpose was obviously the same as the Corpse Palace, to take over the two forces. In addition, Jian Wushuang was obviously stronger than Corpse Palace. The situation seemed to like they had just painstakingly sent away a wolf, but ended up with a new and worse enemy like a ferocious tiger. Why? Are the two unwilling? Jian Wushuang stared at the two in front of him with a hint of sarcasm in his eyes. He need not do anything as he believed the two people in front of him should understand their situation laid before them. The two of them had no choice at all. Sheng Long and the purple dress house master indeed were looking helplessly at each other. Sheng Long said after a while, "Alliance Master Su Han, what will happen to us after the Divine Dragon Pavilion and Purple Dress House Master merged into the Sword Alliance? Nothing will change as it's just a simple integration. All the experts from both the pavilion and house will be given a position in the alliance based on their strength. Those with tyrannical strength can also join the Divine Sword Official Army. I'm sure all of them can be integrated into the Sword Alliance. As for the two of you," Jian Wushuang glanced at Sheng Long and Purple Dress House Master. "You know that the overall strength of the Sword Alliance isn't weak with me, having the highest combat power at the peak Heaven Ultimate God realm. If both of you join the Sword Alliance, you'll only be under myself and my chief steward who is also my maid. I plan to set up another battle hall in the Sword Alliance, such that only those above the high-level Heaven Ultimate Gods could join. Both of you can choose to be part of it and become the leader of the battle hall. Or you can join the Divine Sword Official Army and become a member of the Divine Sword Official Army. You will neither suffer nor be wronged in Sword Alliance no matter which you choose as your cultivation realm, is obviously peak Heaven Ultimate God realm. Moreover, our Sword Alliance has sufficient resources. You'll get to enjoy more resources from the Sword Alliance every year the stronger you are," said Jian Wushuang. Sheng Long and the Purple Dress House Master were moved after listening to Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang's offers were not great, but they dared not turn him down. "If this is the case, Divine Dragon Pavilion agrees to be part of the Sword Alliance and respect Master Su Han as our leader," said Sheng Long. "Likewise with the Purple Dress House." The Purple Dress House Master nodded in agreement. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly. "Alliance Master Su Han, Divine Dragon Pavilion has agreed to surrender. I'll return and summon all the experts to make the announcement," said Sheng Long. "Hold on." Jian Wushuang waved his hand. "You only made a verbal agreement. Although the two of you have agreed now, there's no guarantee that you won't regret it when you return to your respective forces. I'll have wasted my efforts if that happened, won't I?" Sheng Long and the Purple Dress House Master's expressions sank. "Alliance Master Su Han, don't you believe us?" Sheng Long asked in a low voice. "It's not that I don't believe the two of you, but there must be a surety. It's okay if the two of you leave now, but you have to let me leave an impression in your body without struggling." Jian Wushuang smiled. "Leave an impression?" Sheng Long and Purple Dress House Master were shocked. An impression left in the body was equivalent to one's life being under the other party's control. One must never violate the other party's order from then on. Otherwise, the other party could kill them by manipulating the impression. It was a method to control the other party, which was quite similar to soul control. The difference was that soul control would erase the subject's own consciousness and become absolutely loyal to the owner without any doubt. On the other hand, leaving an impression in the body would not have any effect on the subject's consciousness, thoughts, strength, or other areas. It was merely to control the subject by placing a stern reminder in the body. Hence the subject dared not disobey the other party's orders. Although the method to leave an impression in the body was not as bad as soul control, it would still make the subject feel extremely anxious. Chapter 2701. Second-Rated Force Alliance Master Su Han. Do you want the two of us to hand over our lives to you? Sheng Long's expression was extremely ugly. That's right. Jian Wushuang nodded and grinned. Do you think that both your lives are still safe in your hands? Sheng Long and the purple dress house master were both stupefied. At that instance, they were still standing safely on the spot. However, Jian Wushuang was right in front of them. He could easily kill both of them, even if he did not use any of his techniques to freeze space-time with his strength at that moment. Their life and death were indeed under Jian Wushuang's control. Let me leave an impression in your body, so I can release you without worries. I'll soon send someone to both of your territories to take over the sites and experts under your command before integrating both of your forces into Sword Alliance in a short time. The two of you will naturally be members of the highest order in Sword Alliance when that time comes. Jian Wushuang smiled. Although Sheng Long and the purple dress house master were extremely unwilling, they had no choice but to agree to Jian Wushuang's request. The two immediately gave up on struggling and allowed Jian Wushuang to leave an impression in their bodies. Jian Wushuang could easily kill both of them at a fickle of his mind at that moment. Haha. Welcome on joining my Sword Alliance. You can now go. Jian Wushuang smiled heartily. Sheng Long sighed lightly with the purple dress house master before turning around and left. Jian Wushuang smiled even wider while he watched the two leave. I've earned so much from today's battle, murmured Jian Wushuang. The Banquet Corpse Palace, initially held to integrate the several forces, ended up benefiting the Sword Alliance in the end. The Corpse Palace was destroyed whilst the Divine Dragon Pavilion and Purple Dress House merged into the Sword Alliance. It was equivalent to the Sword Alliance devouring all three forces in one go. All their territories would then fall under Sword Alliance's control. Sword Alliance has controlled 4 cities after taking in the 7 Absolute Palace and Bloodwater Gang. Now Sword Alliance will be controlling 9 cities altogether with the 3 new additions, especially when considering the Corpse Palace that controls 3 cities. Our scale is considered strong even among second-rated forces. As for the experts, although Corpse Palace was destroyed, Jian Wushuang had only killed one of the 2 highest-level palace masters of the Corpse Palace while the other was chased away. Most of Corpse Palace's experts did not suffer any damage and joined the Sword Alliance for the benefits offered. As long as they could get their desired benefits from the Sword Alliance in the future, they would stay and contribute to the Sword Alliance's combat power. Jian Wushuang would very soon integrate both Divine Dragon Pavilion and Purple Dress House into Sword Alliance. Once the integration was completed, the Sword Alliance would have many Heaven Ultimate Gods, many of which would be joining the Divine Sword Official Army to increase the scale and combat power of the Divine Sword Official Army. The Sword Alliance would then be no weaker than any second-rated force in terms of Heaven Ultimate Gods' combat powers. As for the ultimate level of combatant powers, ordinary second-rated forces had several peak Heaven Ultimate Gods. The Sword Alliance had Jian Wushuang himself, Sheng Long, and the Purple Dress House Master. Among the 3 of them, Jian Wushuang was capable of handling a few peak Heaven Ultimate Gods at one go. Therefore, the Sword Alliance was not weaker at the highest level of combat power, and might even be stronger than the average second-rated forces. In other words, the current Sword Alliance was a second-rated force. Regardless of its scale or overall combat power, Sword Alliance would never be weaker than those average second-rated forces. Second-rated forces? Jian Wushuang's mouth curled up slightly. His goal was to expand the Sword Alliance to the point it could challenge the top forces. In that case, the Sword Alliance would be able to relieve some of Crimson Stone Fort's pressure and allow Yin Suer more time and room to deal with Crimson Stone Fort's internal problems of the several major factions. In addition, Jian Wushuang himself would have controlled a very strong force to help Yin Suer in solving the internal conflicts between those big factions. He had taken a big step toward his goal. He secretly sighed, but his expression soon became sullen once again. Although I won a great victory in this battle, and my Sword Alliance has taken advantage of it, it has also brought a lot of troubles. The trouble was none other than the Star Fort. Although Star Fort was only a second-rated force, It was considered the ultimate expert among second-rate forces. Those forces were not to be trifled with. Although there are many experts within the Star Fort, the Sword Alliance's overall strength isn't any weaker once the Sword Alliance integrates the three new forces and includes the Divine Sword official army into the equation. In terms of peak heaven ultimate god combat powers, I'm now fearless with the A-finger-pointing heavenly technique, as 90% of peak heaven ultimate gods aren't my match. However, the threat of the Star Fort Master is still too great, thought Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang did not care about the Star Fort's overall strength, including those top experts it possesses. The Sword Alliance would never become the underdog, even if the Star Fort was going to fight the Sword Alliance, once the three new additions joined the Sword Alliance. The only issue that made Jian Wushuang thread carefully was the Star Fort Master. The Star Fort Master was a true Grand Ultimate God. A peak heaven ultimate god was far incomparable to a Grand Ultimate God. As an example, FO's strength was extremely powerful and ranked in the top 10 among the many peak heaven ultimate gods in Danyang continent, but he was still far behind Grand Ultimate gods. The reason Jian Wushuang was able to kill FO was based on a technique called a finger-pointing heavenly technique, but the trick only worked up to peak heaven ultimate gods, and had no whatsoever effects on a Grand Ultimate God. Jian Wushuang was still unable to face a Grand Ultimate God in a battle, unless he could go one step further and make a breakthrough from peak Earth Ultimate God to Heaven Ultimate God. FO was worthy of his high status in the Star Fort, being second only to the Fort Master, with such an extremely extraordinary net worth. There were a total of 2,500 divine elixir pills in the interspatial ring he left behind. Meanwhile, one of the Corpse Palace Masters also had 900 divine elixir pills on hand, which added up to 3,400. There are so many divine elixir pills that it's sufficient to help me make a breakthrough and reach the Heaven Ultimate God realm. However, it'll take a certain amount of time for me to refine so many divine elixir pills. It'll take at least 2 years regardless of how I calculate. I'm afraid the Star Fort Master would have come up here in less than 2 years. Jian Wushuang frowned. If Jian Wushuang broke through and refined the divine elixir pills to reach the Heaven Ultimate God 2 years later, he would no longer need to be mindful of the Star Fort Master. The point was that the Star Fort Master might not give him so much time. Chapter 2702. Look for a helper. Fo Wu, whom I've killed, had a special position in Star Fort. Ill come the moment I received news, if am the Star Fort master, and give the culprit no chance to plan for his escape. Don't mention about 2 years. The Star Fort master might personally arrive within half a month, said Jian Wushuang secretly. It seemed impossible for him to achieve another breakthrough, within half a month, to the Heaven Ultimate God realm. There's absolutely no way. I guess I can only ask for help from Palace Keeper Xizhen. Jian Wushuang then took out a message token. Palace Keeper Xizhen. Jian Wushuang sent a message to Palace Keeper Xizhen. Palace Keeper Xizhen also quickly responded. Jian Yi, are you sending me a message to ask about the sale of the Royal Blood Gem? I've told you that it's not easy to handle the Royal Blood Gem. Besides, the Fort Master has been busy working on this issue, but there's no definite news yet. You might have to wait longer, but you can tell me if you need more primordial stones. Palace Keeper Xizhen, I'm not here to ask about the Royal Blood Gem. There's something I want to seek for your help. Jian Wushuang smiled. What's the matter? Palace Keeper Xizhen asked. Well, I urgently need the help of a Grand Ultimate God. I don't need him to fight for me. All I need is for him to stay within the force that I've created. I'll just need to send the enemy away when someone comes and provokes me. I'll probably need his help for 2 years at most, said Jian Wushuang. You need a Grand Ultimate God helper? Palace Keeper Xizhen pondered momentarily, but he did not ask Jian Wushuang for the specific reason and said, If you're looking for Grand Ultimate God, we have a few here in Crimson Stone Fort who are loyal to the Fort Master. I'm sure it can be arranged, as long as the Fort Master orders one of them to offer their help to you for 2 years. However, you probably don't want to use the experts from Crimson Stone Fort, right? Yes. I still don't want people to know the force I've created is closely related to Crimson Stone Fort. Hence I prefer a free and independent Grand Ultimate God to help me. Palace Keeper Xizhen, you have many friends. Can you help me to get in touch with your contacts? Jian Wushuang asked. Well, I do know a few powerful Grand Ultimate Gods who aren't attached to any forces, as there are several within the Danyang continent. I think it's possible to ask them to be your helper for 2 years, but they'll probably ask for a very high amount of rewards in return, said Palace Keeper Xizhen. I think there's always room for discussion as long as he can help me eliminate an immediate problem, and doesn't ask for an outrageous amount in return, said Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang knew there was no free lunch in the world. He would have to pay a reasonable price if he wanted the help of a Grand Ultimate God. I'll help you ask around then, said Palace Keeper Xizhen. Palace Keeper Xizhen, could you please help me find one as soon as possible? I need one very urgently as there may be a strong enemy coming at any time, pleaded Jian Wushuang. Don't worry, it won't take long. Palace Keeper Xizhen smiled reassuringly. Palace Keeper Xizhen indeed sent Jian Wushuang another message, in less than half an hour. I've contacted a Grand Ultimate God. He doesn't have a name, but most people who know him call him Old Snake or Strange Old Snake. He's a very powerful primary level Grand Ultimate God, and had promised to be your helper for 2 years. But he's asking for 1,000 divine elixir pills, and 1 billion primordial stones in return. Palace Keeper Xizhen said. The corner of Jian Wushuang's mouth twitched slightly. He indeed asked for a lot. Jian Wushuang exclaimed, 1,000 divine elixir pills, and 1 billion primordial stones, were far less than the treasures Jian Wushuang had previously obtained from Shurimo. It was indeed a high price to pay. However, he knew it was not easy to get help from those aloof Grand Ultimate Gods. It was worthwhile to pay 1,000 divine elixir pills, and 1 billion primordial stones, in exchange for a powerful primary-level Grand Ultimate God to be at his service for 2 years. Old Snake is asking for divine elixir pills only since primordial stones were of little use, and were probably just a number to him. He had asked for 4,000 divine elixir pills, but I've persuaded him to go with the current arrangement. He agreed after considering the close-knitted relationship with myself in Crimson Stone Fort, explained Palace Keeper Xizhen. Really? I should thank you then. Jian Wushuang smiled. You're welcome. I've already told him everything, and he's ready to make a move at any time. You may send me your location, and I'll ask him to immediately go look for you," added Palace Keeper Xizhen. "In that case, please ask him to come as soon as possible," said Jian Wushuang as he shared his location with Palace Keeper Xizhen. Palace Keeper Xizhen then helped Jian Wushuang to sort it out quickly. All Jian Wushuang had to do was wait quietly in Dragon City. During his waiting period, experts from Sword Alliance were busy integrating the three forces: Corpse Mansion, Divine Dragon Pavilion, and Purple Dress House. 5 days had passed in the blink of an eye. They were still busy with integrating those forces, but Old Snake had arrived. In a void not far from the Dragon City, a dark old man dressed in a black robe, who had a triangular head-patterned skinned green snake on his shoulder, stood quietly. The old man had concealed his divine power breath, while giving people a feeling of tranquility and calmness. However, his gaze was extremely cold, like the pupils of the viper on his shoulder. Jianyi, a pleasure to meet you, Old Snake." Jian Wushuang appeared in front of the old man, and humbly paid obeisance, while trying to study the other party. "Are you the young guy named Jianyi mentioned by Palace Keeper Xizhen?" The old man nonchalantly glanced at Jian Wushuang, and immediately stretched out his hand. "Give me my reward first." Jian Wushuang was startled. He would only pay a part for the deposit under normal circumstances, with the rest to be given after 2 years. However, Old Snake had demanded to be paid at the very beginning. Jian Wushuang felt that Old Snake would care about his identity as a grand ultimate god, and would not eat his words. Moreover, he was Palace Keeper Xizhen's friend. There should not be any problems with his credibility, so Jian Wushuang gave Old Snake the 1,000 divine elixir pills and 1 billion primordial stones. Jian Wushuang did not care too much about the 1 billion primordial stones, but 1,000 divine elixir pills were quite useful to him. However, he was not very far away from Heaven Ultimate God Realm. He had managed to obtain 3,400 divine elixir pills at one go earlier, but probably only needed 2,000 of them for his breakthrough. Hence it was still fairly easy for him to give away 1,000 divine elixir pills. Old Snake took the interspatial ring and made a rough calculation before nodding in approval. Chapter 2703. Heaven Ultimate God Breakthrough. I won't be taking the initiative and fighting for you according to Palace Keeper Sijun, but I'll stay with the force you've created for the next 2 years. If an enemy arrives and is within my capabilities to handle, I'll dismiss the enemy. However, I'll leave if the opponent is much stronger than me without returning these divine elixir pills and primordial stones, said Old Snake indifferently. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly and said, "That's all right. Please come with me." Jian Wushuang immediately led Old Snake into Dragon City and arranged a place for his stay. Jian Wushuang then entered his secret chamber and began to cultivate in seclusion. There were a lot of divine elixir pills suspended in front of him in the secret chamber. The Star Fort Master is only a primary level Grand Ultimate God. Old Snake has probably discovered that I've gotten on the Star Fort Master's wrong side after arriving at the Sword Alliance. He should know that the Star Fort Master would probably be here to seek revenge, yet he didn't say or ask about anything. I guess he's confident that he can deal with the Star Fort Master. In that case, he'll focus on absorbing and refining these divine elixir pills and achieve a breakthrough as soon as possible. Let's start. Jian Wushuang closed his eyes and began to refine those divine elixir pills without hesitation. Time began to slowly pass. While Jian Wushuang was refining those divine elixir pills, inside the Star Fort Magnificent Hall, several figures gathered together with Guemo being one of them. Guemo and Shurimo had joined Star Fort a long time ago, but did not announce to the public that they had created Corpse Palace, just so a new second-rated force could be set up in a short period to enhance the Star Fort's overall strength, as they were planning to discreetly do so. Surprisingly, their long-awaited opportunity ended up becoming great assistance to Sword Alliance instead. In addition, Star Fort had suffered a heavy loss in the battle. I've received news that Su Han is currently cultivating in seclusion, said a middle-aged red-haired man in a deep voice. That bastard is chilling after killing Fo Wu and Shurimo? How dare he? He doesn't even see Star Fort as a threat. The eyes of the several Star Fort experts were burning with anger. Although he's now in seclusion, we found out that he had invited a mysterious expert to man the Sword Alliance. This mysterious expert has a triangular head pattern skinned green snake on his shoulder. If I'm not mistaken, he must be the strange old snake of the Danyang continent, said the red-haired middle-aged man again. Old Snake? Isn't he a Grand Ultimate God? Su Han invited a Grand Ultimate God to man his Sword Alliance? No wonder he dares to go into seclusion without worries. He has gotten help. All of those people present were just peak Heaven Ultimate Gods, and were rather knowledgeable. They had heard of Old Snake, and knew he was a Grand Ultimate God they could not trifle with. Star Fort would not dare act rashly to seek revenge with Old Snake in town. Damn it! What the hell is the Sword Alliance's background? How can they get help from a Grand Ultimate God? A peak Heaven Ultimate God cursed in a low voice. Guemo solemnly said, I've long suspected there should be other forces secretly backing the Sword Alliance. Sword Alliance's rise is too fast. I'm sure it requires a lot of resources to support its growth. Likely some forces are secretly supporting it. We initially thought their support was some relatively strong second-rated forces equivalent to Star Fort, which was the reason we dared to fight against the Sword Alliance. Judging from the current situation, I'm afraid that the forces behind the Sword Alliance aren't just some second-rated force, but a first-rated one. The situation in the Danyang continent was complex, whereby it was normal for some powerful forces to secretly support the rise of new forces. However, a first-rate force would give support to the second-rated forces under normal circumstances, and rarely support third-rated forces. It was why Guemo and the others subconsciously thought the Sword Alliance had support from some second-rated forces. However, they would never be able to invite Old Snake for help in such a short amount of time if that was the case. No matter who's behind the Sword Alliance, Star Fort would never let them off so easily for killing my big brother, and Fo, even if they are the top guns. Guemo shouted sharply, Yes, never let them off. Several other people also nodded in agreement. Suddenly, the red-haired middle-aged man was alerted. Everyone, the Fort Master has responded. Quick, tell us what the Fort Master says. Guemo immediately turned to the red-haired middle-aged man. The fort master says that he knows about everything, but is currently going through a critical period, so he won't appear for the time being. However, he said it won't take long, and would be out of seclusion, at most around a year, with his strength also greatly improved by then. He'll lead us to the Sword Alliance when the time comes. As for Old Snake, Fort Master may not be able to handle him now, but things will be different after the Fort Master completes his secluded cultivation. Old Snake alone won't be a threat to the Fort Master by then, said the red-haired middle-aged man. Great! Guemo and the others' eyes lit up with hope. The Fort Master told us to hold on and not rush into taking revenge. He'll personally annihilate the Sword Alliance once he completes his secluded cultivation, the red-haired middle-aged man continued. If this is the case, we shall then quietly wait. Guemo and others made a decision. Jian Wushuang thought the Star Fort would gather their experts in the shortest possible time, with the Star Fort Master personally leading them in attacking the Sword Alliance. He was prepared to fight the Star Fort, but did not realize that the Star Fort Master was also cultivating in seclusion. In addition, the Star Fort Master happened to be at his most critical stage, which was why he could not make a move. Therefore, there was no movement from the Star Fort for some time. As for the movement within the Sword Alliance, the three forces, Corpse Palace, Divine Dragon Pavilion, and Purple Dress House, had all been assimilated into the Sword Alliance. Many experts from the three forces had joined the Sword Alliance, with many even joined the Divine Sword Official Army. The strength of the Divine Sword Official Army had skyrocketed with those new additions. The entire Sword Alliance had become much stronger than before. Time was slowly passing by. Jian Wushuang, who stayed in the secret chamber, had been seizing the time to refine and absorb those divine elixir pills. Jian Wushuang was left with 2,400 divine elixir pills, after 3,400 divine elixir pills were deducted with the 1,000 divine elixir pills given to Old Snake, and needed 1 year and 6 months to refine all those 2,400 divine elixir pills. Once it was completed, his cultivation realm had made a breakthrough to the next realm, as he anticipated. Chapter 2704. The Attack. I've reached the Heaven Ultimate God realm. Jian Wushuang opened his eyes while in a state of ecstasy. The gap between Earth Ultimate God and Heaven Ultimate God was too huge. He was able to challenge those of a higher realm, because he was a perfect chaotic creature. It was almost impossible for an ordinary Earth Ultimate God cultivator to fight against a Heaven Ultimate God. Jian Wushuang had made a breakthrough from peak Earth Ultimate God realm to primary level Heaven Ultimate God realm, with his divine power undergoing some qualitative changes. His overall strength, as well as other great secret techniques he cultivated, had also instantly elevated to a whole new level with great improvements. He had achieved the 7 Stars Secret Techniques second volume, and he could not improve further on that. However, other techniques like the Divine God of Punishment, Primordial Void Celestial Body, and even the 9 Sparkle Star Armor had improved. Jian Wushuang contained the surprise and happiness in him, as he remained in the secret chamber, to carry on sharpening his skills and secret techniques. Time continued to pass by. Another 3 months had passed by in a flash. In a secret chamber enshrouded by a large number of restrictive shields at the Star Fort, a middle-aged man with neat and black short hair sat cross-legged. There was a special star-shaped mark between his eyebrows which gave away an intimidating feel. The middle-aged man opened his eyes as the pupils in his deep eyes were seemingly doused in elation. It's done, it's finally done. Haha, how many years has it been? My level of law perception has stayed at this level for many years, and I haven't been able to achieve a breakthrough. I even thought I'll be stuck in this bottleneck for the rest of my life, but I've finally broken through this bottleneck. The middle-aged man laughed as his voice echoed throughout the secret chamber. His hand gripped tightly onto an old scroll. I did it because of this. It's indeed a prized treasure from that place. I have only gotten it for 20 years, and it has helped me make a breakthrough in my law understanding bottleneck. I might even improve in my understanding of principles if I continue using this in meditation, and there might be a chance for me to achieve a breakthrough in my cultivation realm. The middle-aged man had his eyes riveted on the scroll. His mood soon calmed down. I have broken through the bottleneck in law perception and improved on my strength. It's now time for me to seek revenge from the Sword Alliance. The middle-aged man's eyes turned cold as he immediately left the secret chamber. Many high-level experts from Star Fort gathered before him not long after he left the secret chamber. Our pleasure to meet the Fort Master. Welcome back. Guemo, and the remaining Peak Heaven Ultimate Gods from Star Fort respectfully paid obeisance. The middle-aged man was the Star Fort Master called FOE. FOE had a similar name to FOWU who was killed by Jian Wushuang. It was obvious those two had an unusually close relationship. It was indeed the truth. FOE and FOWU were originally from the same organization. They were experts the organization cultivated since young, with their names were also given by that organization. However, the organization later encountered a powerful enemy and was destroyed. FOE and FOWU managed to escape before joining forces and began to work together, gradually showing their talent in the Danyang continent. The two had jointly created the Star Fort. FOE was the Star Fort Master, while FOWU handled all the operations within Star Fort. The two were like brothers who went through thick and thin. FOE naturally would not let the matter rest after his brother was killed. Deliver my commands. Summon all the experts to come with me and wipe out the Sword Alliance. FOE ordered. The Star Fort experts were very excited to hear that. Soon, FOE personally led all the Star Fort high-level experts and headed straight for the Sword Alliance. Sword Alliance. In nearly 2 years, Corpse Palace, Divine Dragon Pavilion, and Purple Dress House had been completely assimilated into the Sword Alliance. The Sword Alliance's strength had also greatly improved. The Divine Sword Official Army had also expanded from 50 soldiers to 100 soldiers, with their combat power greatly increased. In addition, there were 3 great combat leaders at the highest level: Jian Wushuang, Sheng Long, and Purple Dress House Master. Sword Alliance since then became a second-rated force and was recognized by all the other forces as a powerful second-rated force. The Sword Alliance had developed rapidly. However, today, a large number of Star Fort experts went all the way to Dragon City and stopped in the void before the huge black castle. Rumbling, their tyrannical aura permeated from the void above Dragon City from every direction. The Black Castle was the Sword Alliance's lair. A large number of Sword Alliance experts also rose instantly into the void after sensing the gush of tyrannical aura. At the same time, the Divine Sword official army, that was made up of hundreds of Heaven Ultimate gods, also appeared uniformly in the void up above. The soldiers in the Divine Sword official army were carefully selected. They were extremely powerful among Heaven Ultimate gods and worked well together with great tacit understanding. They stood together to form a military formation at that moment. Although they stood quietly in lines, their cold eyes were focusing on the Star Fort experts. These people look like an army? FOE also saw the mini soldiers from the Divine Sword official army and was surprised. They're indeed an army. They're called the Divine Sword official army and were formed in a very short time by the leader at a great cost. According to the information we have, this Divine Sword official army currently has a total of 100 soldiers, with all of them at the Heaven Ultimate God's realm, and knowing some military formations. Their combat prowess is particularly strong, said a red-haired middle-aged person next to FOE. A mere second-rated force has formed an official army in a very short time. They must be really rich and powerful. I don't know which force is secretly supporting the Sword Alliance. FOE smiled coldly. Although I don't know who it is, today this Divine Sword official army is gonna be mine. FOE had shown a great deal of interest in the Divine Sword official army. After all, even his Star Fort did not have enough resources to form such a high-quality army. In the void some distance away, the high-level experts from the Sword Alliance had also gathered together. There are so many people here. It seems the Star Fort is coming all out this time, thinking to destroy the Sword Alliance. Dong Shui gazed coldly at those people from the Star Fort. The Star Fort experts aren't terrifying. We're good enough to fight against those experts and have a great winning chance with the current combat prowess of the Divine Sword official army. The only issue is the genuine Grand Ultimate God Star Fort Master has also personally come forward. Long Shan frowned. Sheng Long and Purple Dress House Master felt a great deal of pressure coming from just FOE alone. Chapter 2705. Star Fort Master. Although there was a huge gap between the Earth Ultimate God Realm and Heaven Ultimate God Realm, some top geniuses could still challenge those at a higher realm. The difference between the Heaven Ultimate God Realm and the Grand Ultimate God Realm was even more outrageous. Under normal circumstances, even those extremely talented peak Heaven Ultimate God geniuses from Dragon Phoenix Pavilion could hardly fight against a Grand Ultimate God. The Star Fort Master alone could easily slaughter a large group of peak Heaven Ultimate Gods. Don't worry, Master has long expected this attack from the Star Fort Master, so he had prepared something before he went into seclusion. We shall just watch quietly. The Star Fort Master probably can't do anything to us, said Xiao Tiexin. Several people around also nodded in agreement. It was indeed true, as not long after the Star Fort experts appeared in the void above the Black Castle, a dark-skinned old man dressed in black robes and carrying a triangular head-pattern skinned green snake on his shoulder slowly appeared in the void above. FOE. Old Snake spoke coldly. Strange old snake, you and I haven't seen each other for a while. Why do you have to intervene in today's matters? FOE stared coldly at Old Snake. I've agreed to the responsibility, of course, said Old Snake. I've promised Alliance Master Su Han to guard the Sword Alliance for him for 2 years. 1 year and 9 months have passed, and we're currently counting down the last 3 months. You should come back in 3 months if you want to attack the Sword Alliance. Old Snake would leave after completing the agreement 3 months later, and would not interfere in any of Sword Alliance's matters at that time. 3 months later? FOE's eyes were extremely cold. Su Han killed my only brother. The enmity between us is irresolvable. If I wasn't going through a critical time previously, and was unable to leave the secret chamber, I would have killed him a long time ago. You want me to wait another 3 months? Sorry, I can't even wait 1 day. Old Snake said. We have no choice in that case. I'm here to accept it if you want to make a move, but you ought to know my strength level. I'm afraid you won't be able to go past me. Really? The Buddha smiled strangely. Boom! The terrifying power of a Grand Ultimate God spread across. The aura oppressed everything as FOE flipped his hand, and a golden spear appeared before he immediately fired his first shot. It was an earth-shattering attack by a Grand Ultimate God expert. Old Snake was not afraid at all. He emanated a cold breath of aura, which spread into the void before stepping forward to greet FOE's attacks. The 2 Grand Ultimate God experts instantly fought head-on in the void. Bang! 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 A series of earth-shaking noises sounded along with extremely violent divine power every time it happened. The divine powers that spread to all corners were extremely powerful and were enough to easily tear a Heaven Ultimate God into pieces. It was hard to imagine the level of force at the fight's epicenter. Retreat, retreat quickly! Get out of here! Both the Sword Alliance and Star Fort's experts moved out of the battlefield, giving way to form a larger battlefield. All of them were standing on the very edge of the battlefield, staring at the battle between the 2 Grand Ultimate Gods at the center. Sheng Long exclaimed, Strong, too strong. This is a battle between the 2 Grand Ultimate Gods. I don't know who'll win in the end. The Star Fort Master has been famous for a long time, and is extremely powerful. However, Alliance Master has invited Old Snake's assistance, and is not someone to be trifled with either, said the Purple Dress House Master. I've heard about strange Old Snake. He's a very terrifying Lone Ranger expert. In terms of strength, he's close to the peak among those primary-level Grand Ultimate Gods. His reputation is much greater than the Star Fort Master. I wonder how Alliance Master managed to invite him. In terms of fame, the Star Fort Master is not as famous as Old Snake. He's probably also slightly inferior in terms of strength. Several high-level experts from the Sword Alliance were talking. Suddenly, bang! There was a loud noise as a rather embarrassing figure was immediately sent retreating quite far back. Everyone looked on and noticed that person turned out to be the more famous Old Snake. How come? Several high-level experts from the Sword Alliance were surprised. Old Snake's expression became extremely solemn after regaining his footings. FOE, your strength has improved this much? Old Snake knew about the Star Fort Master FOE and his strength well. FOE was a primary level Grand Ultimate God, and was quite powerful. But Old Snake thought that FOE should be a little inferior as compared to himself. He fought against FOE many years ago. At that time, FOE was completely subdued by him with no chance to fight back. Time flew, and within 200 years, FOE's strength had undergone some tremendous changes. FOE had not only gained the upper hand, but had also exerted a tremendous amount of pressure on Old Snake, making Old Snake unable to retaliate. Haha, Old Snake. I know you were in Sword Alliance a long time ago. Why will I be here if I didn't have a certain amount of confidence? If you know what's good for you, you should go away now. Otherwise, you won't be able to escape today, sneered FOE. Ha, how arrogant. Old Snake's gaze was icy cold as he strode forward and began attacking again. At that moment, Old Snake went all out with his strongest method. Boom, boom, boom. Several more bombarding sounds rang again during the confrontation, as the triangular-shaped head green pattern skin snake on Old Snake's shoulder shot out without warning. Its size grew in the void before turning into a monstrous python. The giant python opened its mouth and exposed its fangs before charging at FOE. FOE shrank his pupils when he saw that. Go! The spear in FOE's hand suddenly soared with a stern shout, and a terrifying golden beam of light was discharged from the spear. The giant python transformed from the triangular head pattern skin green snake, had no chance to struggle, and was instantly knocked out of the way. Even Old Snake's figure was shocked by the impact, before letting out a muffled grunt as he retreated. A trace of blood spilled from the corner of his mouth, after he regained his footing. Haha, Old Snake. I was indeed not your match in the last battle, but my current strength has gone through a major breakthrough, and has completely surpassed yours. You alone cannot stop me now. If you choose not to leave now, then you may stay here forever. FOE laughed as the aura in his body soared. He was indeed stronger than Old Snake. Chapter 2706. Jian Wushuang out from seclusion. FOE is much better than last time. Old Snake isn't his match at all if they go one-on-one. Old Snake's eyes turned cold. He knew the Sword Alliance's enemy was Star Fort, but was not bothered because the FOE from Star Fort was previously not his opponent. He could easily dismiss FOE. As a result, FOE's strength was somewhat beyond his imagination. Alliance Master Su Han, "I'll leave right away if you don't show up," said Old Snake with his voice reverberating throughout the area. His voice had not only echoed in the surrounding void, but also spread to the black castle below into the secret chamber. In that secret chamber, Jian Wushuang had been spending time in seclusion to improve his secret techniques. He was improving on the Divine God of Punishment technique, and had yet to reach the very limits that he was capable of achieving. Old Snake's voice came to Jian Wushuang's way. Jian Wushuang was alerted and opened his eyes. He then immediately got out of seclusion. Boom! A powerful divine power breath was discharged from the Black Castle as Jian Wushuang slowly walked out. All attention was on him as soon as he appeared. It's the Alliance Master. The Alliance Master is finally out. Look at his divine power breath. Someone exclaimed, and everyone soon noticed it too. Jian Wushuang had achieved the Heaven Ultimate God realm, but his divine power breath was raised to a new level under the disguise of the Black Stone to the Peak Heaven Ultimate God realm. Peak Heaven Ultimate God. Alliance Master has made a breakthrough again. The Sword Alliance experts were overjoyed. Jian Wushuang stepped forward and walked toward Old Snake. "Old Snake, are you alright?" Jian Wushuang asked. "I'm fine, but FOE's strength is a little beyond what I imagined it to be. I can't stop him alone," said Old Snake. Jian Wushuang glanced at FOE and nodded. FOE's divine power breath was indeed amazing. Although he was only a primary level Grand Ultimate God, he was much more powerful than the average primary level Grand Ultimate God, and was not far inferior to the King Scorpion, whom Jian Wushuang had previously met. King Scorpion was an outstanding primary level Grand Ultimate God, and extremely strong among primary level Grand Ultimate Gods. He was able to compete against 3 other primary level Grand Ultimate Gods at the same time with his extraordinary strength. FOE was very close to the level of King Scorpion, hence it came to no surprise that Old Snake was not his match. Alliance Master Su Han, I heard that you previously can wipe out any Peak Heaven Ultimate God without breaking a sweat when you were only a high-level Heaven Ultimate God. Your combat prowess must have improved since you have reached the Peak Heaven Ultimate God realm. You should be able to fight against average primary level Grand Ultimate Gods. We might be able to handle FOE if we join forces, suggested Old Snake. Join forces? Jian Wushuang shook his head and smiled. Old Snake, you don't have to intervene in this battle for the time being. Let me deal with FOE for now. Leave it to you single-handedly? Old Snake narrowed his eyes suspiciously and looked at Jian Wushuang. Old Snake had always thought Jian Wushuang was too arrogant. FOE was not what he used to be. His strength had reached the top amongst primary-level Grand Ultimate Gods. Even though Old Snake thought they might have a chance to fight against FOE if he joined forces with Jian Wushuang, the odds of winning were still not great. Old Snake was perplexed that Jian Wushuang refused to join forces. Does he think he could manage FOE single-handedly? Alliance Master Su Han, you have to think carefully. The strength of a Grand Ultimate God isn't as simple as what you think, said Old Snake coldly. He was merely giving a reminder as the decision still lies in Jian Wushuang's hand. Don't worry, I'm quite confident. It won't be too late for you to join in if I fail. Jian Wushuang smiled. Old Snake accepted the arrangement. He was just a helper invited by Jian Wushuang at a high price. There was no friendship between him and Jian Wushuang. It had nothing to do with him even if Jian Wushuang died, and the Sword Alliance was destroyed. He could just leave. Jian Wushuang looked at FOE after making his decision. You are Su Han? FOE was also looking at Jian Wushuang with surging killing intent in his eyes. It's you who killed my only brother, FOE? It's me. If you want to avenge your brother, you can do it. However, I don't know if you have the capabilities. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly. It's time for you to die. FOE did not hesitate as he mustered his terrifying Grand Ultimate God powers and sent it toward Jian Wushuang. He had also made another move with the golden spear in his hand, as it gleamingly burst in bright golden lights. Many Star Fort experts had gathered together behind FOE and watched attentively. Guemo was among them. Su-han doesn't know what's good for him. How dare he compete with the Star Fort master alone? Guemo sneered coldly. I have to admit that Su-han has good skills. He managed to kill Fo Wu when he was a high-level Heaven Ultimate God. Now he has broken through to the peak Heaven Ultimate God realm. His combat power should be stronger. However, how can he even think of handling a Grand Ultimate God, no matter how powerful he has become? That's really stupid. The gap between a Heaven Ultimate God and Grand Ultimate God is so huge. There's no way he can close that gap. Watch out. Su-han will be beheaded by the Fort Master soon, and will then immediately destroy the Sword Alliance. The Divine Sword Official Army will also become a part of Star Fort. The Star Fort experts had absolute confidence in FOE. FOE, with his significantly improved strength, was able to suppress Old Snake. How could a peak Heaven Ultimate God Su-han be his opponent? Jian Wushuang's eyes flickered with a sharp light while FOE was charging at him. Grand Ultimate God. Jian Wushuang was excited. Although he had seen a powerful Grand Ultimate God in action before, it was the first time he fought against one. My strength was already extremely strong among peak Heaven Ultimate Gods before the breakthrough. But my divine power has skyrocketed this time, after making a breakthrough, while my overall strength has increased by leaps and bounds. The most important matter is the improvement I've achieved on my secret techniques. I should be able to fight against an ordinary primary level Grand Ultimate God. Let's find out whether I can beat FOE or not. Jian Wushuang stretched out his tongue and licked his lips. At the same time, he discharged a surge of golden divine power from his body. Chapter 2707. Battling a Grand Ultimate God Rumble. The vast golden divine power condensed behind Jian Wushuang, as a huge and infinite golden god shadow with a height of 8,000 feet, appeared in the blink of an eye. An 8,000 feet tall divine god of punishment. It's a pity that FOE came a little earlier. If he had given me more time, the divine god of punishment would be more than 8,000 feet tall. At least 9,000 feet, or even exceed 10,000 feet, and achieve the third level of the divine god of punishment. The power of this secret technique will then have a qualitative change, mumbled Jian Wushuang to himself. However, his 8,000 feet tall divine god of punishment was much stronger than his previous 5,000 feet tall. The huge golden god shadow formed was overlooking heaven and earth. Jian Wushuang then unleashed the 7-star secret technique, and caused his divine power to skyrocket at an extremely terrifying speed. His divine power had already reached the peak Heaven Ultimate God realm under the Black Stone's disguise. However, his divine power had increased crazily once again, and exceeded the Heaven Ultimate God realm in the blink of an eye. It ended up elevated to the Grand Ultimate God realm. Grand Ultimate God? He has risen to the Grand Ultimate God realm. Those people who were watching the battle exclaimed. So what if he's a Grand Ultimate God? FOE did not take Jian Wushuang seriously, and dashed forward. The tip of the golden long spear in his hand condensed at one point, as a bright golden light suddenly burst out. Jian Wushuang gave a cold snort before taking a step, and soon appeared in front of FOE. He then swept his blood mountain sword across. The movement seemed soundless and stirless, but space-time, heaven, and earth seemed to have completely overlapped. A unique sword shadow was fleeting amidst the overlapping. Space-time sword technique's 6th form, overlapping shadow. Clang! The sound of metal clashing rang as Jian Wushuang discharged his entire divine power. His sword shadow collided with FOE's golden light, before frantically permeating terrifying powers. FOE's face sank. This kid has such amazing power. He's so tyrannical. FOE was quite surprised. He did not know that Jian Wushuang had relied on his perfect chaotic creature's physical ability, combined with the primordial void celestial body, to produce divine power, at the level of a peak Heaven Ultimate God before making a breakthrough. After he had had a cultivation breakthrough, and performed the 7-star secret technique, along with the divine god of punishment, all of that strength combined, was definitely not weaker than the average primary level Grand Ultimate God. In fact, it could even be stronger. The reason they were evenly matched was only that Jian Wushuang's had performed the space-time sword technique against FOE's golden law. Among those two techniques, FOE's golden law was much stronger. Buzz! A slight sound of heaven breaking through could be heard as FOE narrowed his eyes and noticed the void next to him. A huge black divine sword had appeared at some point, like an awl that could drill through a mountain. It pierced through the void and shot toward FOE. It was so powerful that FOE dared not take it lightly. Retreat! FOE stepped back and slightly lifted his golden spear amidst moving before causing his spear tip and the black divine sword to crash into each other. The black divine sword was slightly shaken and thrown into the nearby void before FOE wielded the golden spear and swept it across in a special trajectory. Dazzling golden light flashed again and aimed at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang was fearless as he swung his Blood Mountain sword in concert with the Transmigration sword formation to fight against FOE. Clang! 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 There were incessant sounds of metal clashing, with each clash accompanied by a pervading majestic force. Old Snake was watching from a void nearby and secretly groaned. Jianyi is powerful for someone that's only a peak heaven ultimate god. He's not weaker than the average primary level grand ultimate god. We could have handled FOE together had he joined hands with me, but now... Old Snake shook his head slightly. As expected, the golden spear in FOE's hand turned into a golden python in just a moment. It was swaying around and finally slammed against Jian Wushuang's Blood Mountain sword and sent Jian Wushuang flying into the air. At the same time, FOE sneered. Your divine power isn't weak, but your understanding of the laws and principles is unfortunately too low. You can only dream of fighting against me with such strength level. FOE continued to attack, and had completely displayed his true strength. He thrust his golden spear again and again. Every movement was mercurial and stronger than before. For a time, Jian Wushuang could only put on a defense mechanism and retreated while being completely suppressed by FOE. Jian Wushuang's face sank. I'm no weaker than him in terms of divine power. In fact, I'm slightly better than him. I'm indeed a lot worse than him in terms of law and principle understanding. Jian Wushuang knew his shortcomings well. His true cultivation realm was only a primary level heaven ultimate god after all. He was merely relying on his special physical abilities, and also his secret techniques, to reach the divine power level he was displaying. In terms of law and principle understanding, he was considered extremely strong amongst the heaven ultimate gods, as many peak heaven ultimate gods were not as good as him. However, he was still lacking when compared to a genuine grand ultimate god. More so when he compared himself with FOE, whose strength had reached the peak of a primary level grand ultimate god. That was the reason Jian Wushuang was at an absolute disadvantage in the battle. The gap between our law and principle understanding is too large. I can only compensate for it with secret techniques. Jian Wushuang's eyes were cold. In the next moment, majestic divine power erupted from his body. The divine power was so pure that a layer of dark golden armor was formed over his body in the blink of an eye. The dark golden armor was exactly the 9 sparkle star armor. The difference being only a piece of golden armor was formed over his body when Jian Wushuang previously used it. The one he had on his body at that moment was dark golden in color. The dark golden armor was no longer the golden amour, but had become the precious armor. The third level of 9 sparkle star armor, precious armor. The dark golden armor covered Jian Wushuang's entire body, which made him look even more intimidating, but his divine power had not changed in any way. However, the fact that his divine power had not improved did not mean his strength had not. Boom! The black divine sword, which resembled an awl that could drill through a mountain, once again shot out under Jian Wushuang's control and sent forth at FOE. It was still the Transmigration sword formation's first level, Heaven's Edge. FOE glanced at the black divine sword but did not fluster. He picked up his golden spear just like before and tried to cast the black divine sword away again. However, the result was Chapter 2708. The Vanquisher Clang. FOE felt a huge force coming his way as a low-impact crashing noise resounded. The golden spear in his hand slightly changed its direction under the huge force, but the black divine sword continued to shoot at his head without losing any momentum. What? FOE was taken aback, but managed to immediately recover his senses. He abruptly retreated, withdrew his spear as such, and collided it again with the black divine sword before finally able to resist the black divine sword's initiative and upper hand. However, as he ruthlessly crushed everything and completely suppressed FOE. Why did his divine power suddenly increase by so much? The many experts who watched the battle around them were astonished. The black divine sword's power was far more powerful than before. Widened. The 9 sparkle star armor unable to believe was one of the 5 most powerful. Their fort master was a genuine grand ultimate god with his strength. The armor formed skyrocketed since exiting from greatly enhanced the one's strength. He could even suppress the famous old snake with the cultivator, but failed in Jian Wuxuang's hands, previously cultivated only to the golden armor chapter level, an absolute crushing power. Allowed him to increase his attacking power by 3 heaven ultimate god. On the other hand, how can his power be so outrageously horrifying? Increase his attacking power by 6 folds. One on the battlefield was the concept of Boy, don't be presumptuous. Jian Wuxuang's divine power as his divine power breath was raised to a new height in the next second. However, his bright golden light burst out from his divine power and turned it into gold. I'm no better than you in terms of understanding the laws and principles. The golden spear in his hand but had also leveled up. For sure. It thrust fiercely conquered all and collided with Jian Wuxuang's is all I need to annihilate everything. As a result, Jian Wuxuang's eyes were cold as he stared at FOE. Jian Wuxuang regained his footing, sword formed by the transmigration turned into a golden Buddha with his sent out again with great power upon no wonder he's able to suppress old snake. At the same time, his strength is indeed impressive. Figure also moved at an astonishing also very good. The space-time law strength Wuxuang secretly. Boom. FOE's face was extremely ugly. The black divine sword charged my strongest secret and again while Jian Wuxuang's blood mountain sword was attacking fiercely. To use his sword the motion was almost unrealistic. It seems that we're equal in terms of strength. Frenzied bombardment such a scary of power. It was such a brutal attack for me that exerted a great deal of pressure on FOE. In addition, that old snake is nearby. His power is way too powerful. Not their match. Even if I tried my best compared with the high-level grand ultimate god, I shall leave for now and continue improving my primary level grand ultimate gods. I'll be back to such a powerful force when it brings despite killing only a peak my understanding of law and principle him incites fear in me, or when I've made a breakthrough in my cultivation realm. FOE made a decision. What FOE did not realize was that Jian Wuxuang's divine power was not that powerful. He was at the primary level heaven ultimate god realm and had decided to turn around even with his perfect chaotic creature physique. What do you think the sword divine power had merely increased to the peak heaven ultimate god? Jian Wuxuang's eyes were cold and sharp. Strength. His golden divine power instantly erupted and stronger divine power toward FOE was because of the secret techniques he had cultivated. FOE's face sank with a fit of strong vengeful anger. He had decided to retreat, realm, but it was Suhan who was the divine god to let him go at that moment. The 8,000-foot-tall golden god Shadow improved his divine power strength. The primordial void celestial body that he had completed to the 3rd scroll raised his divine body and power to a greater strength level. The most important part was the precious armor chapter in 9 sparkle star armor that boosted his power by 6 folds. All those had superimposed to create Jian Wuxuang's outrageously powerful strength level. FOE had also realized that pure power could crush everything. Jian Wuxuang's understanding of laws and principles was far inferior to FOE, but his power was so strong that FOE felt fearful when confronting Jian Wuxuang. FOE could only use some petty actions and methods to indirectly attack Jian Wuxuang, but its effects were minimal. Chapter 2709. Star Armor Domain Jian Wuxuang and FOE were separated by a certain distance in the void as they held each other with their gazes. Why? Are you thinking of making me stay here forever? FOE stared indignantly at Jian Wuxuang. I do think so. Jian Wuxuang smiled coldly. FOE, I've just learned a powerful method not too long ago and never performed it in front of anyone. I guess I'll try it out on you today. Foe's pupils constricted in horror. Jian Wushuang's lips curled as dark golden light shone from the dark golden armor on his body and permeated in all directions with just a thought. It filled the entire place in the blink of an eye. This is a domain-type method? Foe's expression changed as he could tell the dark golden light covering the entire area was a domain-like method. Jian Wushuang was quietly feeling the dark golden domain's power. Is this the star armor domain? It looks good, but I don't know how powerful it is. Jian Wushuang murmured. Star armor domain was a method that came with the 9 sparkle star armor secret technique. It was the same as prison of punishment and divine extermination of punishment that came along with the divine god of punishment. Jian Wushuang could only display the star armor domain method when achieving mastery over the precious armor chapter. Jian Wushuang had just cultivated the precious armor chapter of 9 sparkle star armor not too long ago. Hence the domain type method was still new to him. He had then fully displayed the star armor domain. What can this domain do to me? Foe's divine body remained in a golden shade, as he looked like a golden Buddha. He observed the dark golden domain around him, but did not take it seriously. Let's give it a try. Jian Wushuang smiled before waving his hand. Star armor domain oppression. Rumbling. A terrifying oppressive force suddenly erupted from the dark golden domain and exerted its effect on Foe. Foe was not bothered at first, but his face drastically changed when the domain began oppressing him. This domain is so powerful. Foe was horrified. Foe had no idea the star armor domain was from one of the 5 powerful secret techniques of the 7 Stars Black Sect, 9 sparkle star armor. It was incomparable to any ordinary domain secret techniques. In addition, Jian Wushuang's divine power was extremely powerful at that time when he displayed the star armor domain, causing the oppressive force to be terrifying. Foe felt his divine body was strapped on with a heavy chain, while his strength was greatly restricted. It was just the beginning. A large amount of golden divine power erupted from Jian Wushuang's body after unfolding the star armor domain. The divine power instantly turned into a vast golden divine power ocean that swept around in a frenzied manner. The golden divine power ocean also covered most parts of the void before a huge golden prison soon took shape. The golden prison was none other than the prison of punishment from the divine god of punishment. Not only did the prison of punishment form a golden prison and sealed the world, but a powerful domain power had also erupted from within the prison. The 2 domain-type methods, prison of punishment and star armor domain, overlapped. In the end, an appalling sword intent rose as Jian Wushuang displayed his 100,000 miles perfect sword world. Jian Wushuang's sword world did not give much of an oppressive effect on Foe as his sword world was still at the profound achievement level, whereas Grand Ultimate God Foe had a perfect principle world. However, the double domain-type oppression of prison of punishment and star armor domain were enough to make Foe cringed. My strength was suppressed by a good 40%. Foe opened his eyes wide in shock. It was true that his combat power was top tier even among primary-level Grand Ultimate Gods, but with his strength being suppressed by a good 40% by the double domain-type oppressive method, he was only left with 60% of his strength. His combat prowess dropped sharply, and was only able to display strength estimated to only be at the level of an ordinary primary-level Grand Ultimate God. Even Strange Old Snake could easily subdue Foe with a single move under such circumstances. It was unfortunate that Foe was facing Jian Wushuang, who was much more powerful than Strange Old Snake. Foe, I told you before that Sword Alliance isn't a place where people can come and go as they wish. You and your men should stay here forever since you've made the trip. Kill! Jian Wushuang shouted sternly, and the transmigration sword formation suspended in the void suddenly rose in power and shot out again. Its strength was extremely fast and powerful, and was indeed much stronger than before with the help of those domain-type methods. Rumbling. Though the Black Divine Sword had not yet reached Foe, its terrifying power had been propagated and shocked Foe. Foe wanted to wield the golden spear in his hand, and tried his best to resist the attack. However, Jian Wushuang, who stood in the void before Foe, slowly raised his palm and pointed his finger in Foe's direction at that critical moment. Space-time divine technique. A finger-pointing heavenly technique. Buzz. The vast power of space-time law permeated the space-time where Foe became completely stagnated without any warning. Foe stood frozen, unable to make the slightest movement. Although Jian Wushuang had made a breakthrough in his cultivation realm, he did not make much improvement in the perception of space-time law despite the power displayed. When he executed, that move was much stronger than before. It would not be a problem had he used the same move against a heaven ultimate god, but its effect was not the same against a genuine grand ultimate god, Foe. Therefore, Foe quickly recovered after falling into stagnation for a very short time. The black divine sword was right in front of him when the space-time around Foe reverted to normal. Foe was stunned and immediately swung his spear to resist the sword attack. However, his speed was a little slower, due to the double domain type oppressive method that had restricted his strength. Although he managed to place his spear in front of him and block the black divine sword, the spear was immediately crushed by the black divine sword. The black divine sword carried heaven-shattering power and bombarded Foe's divine body. Puff! Foe's divine body began to tremble violently before his body flew away like a cannonball after coughing out a big mouthful of blood. He had suffered heavy injuries. Not dead yet. Then let's do it again. The indifferent Jian Wushuang pointed his finger again. Buzz! The same trick occurred once again, as the space-time around Foe fell into a state of temporary stagnation. The black divine sword soon appeared in front of him again when he recovered. At that time, he no longer could swing his spear to resist the sword attack, as his divine body was again bombarded by the black divine sword. There was still a great deal of power that penetrated Foe's divine body, despite the blow being weakened by Foe's defensive armor. The horrifying power then permeated through Foe's divine body with the impact shattering his internal organs, instantly cutting off his life. Chapter 2710. Invitation to join the alliance. Is he finally dead? Jian Wushuang let out a sigh of relief when he saw Foe breathed his last. A smile finally appeared on his face. Foe was a genuine Grand Ultimate God expert, and was extremely powerful among primary-level Grand Ultimate Gods. Jian Wushuang felt rather excited that he managed to kill and behead such a powerful Grand Ultimate God, and concluded the battle at the same time. He was able to kill Foe by relying on various powerful and secret techniques. Blood mountain sword across. As an example, the horrified finger-pointing heavenly technique was not as effective when being used on a Grand Ultimate God, because Jian Wushuang divine weapon while at the before cutting off his divine body. Jian Wushuang smiled great opportunities and for him to around at the various battles occurring around him. The double domain type method. Those who surrender can live, domain and prison of punishment or try to escape with no mercy. The only part he lacked was his understanding reverberated across the void, which allowed him to perform the perfecting profound in their tracks sword world, and surrendered after hearing Jian had a higher understanding of the sword principle. Nearly 80% of the experts he would be able to perform the 100,000 only more than 20% of the recalcitrant the perfect sword world could easily crush Foe's principal world and killed by the divine sword capabilities. It did not take long for Dragon City to calm down again, which would amount to triple domain had already begun to integrate the Star Fort experts into the Sword Alliance. Had there been triple domain oppression, was to collect my understanding of laws and principles under the Star Fort's control, compared to a genuine Grand Ultimate had been beheaded, and many high-level officials were either also beheaded or surrendered nearby while watching the battle. The territories controlled by the Star Fort would naturally fall under the Sword Alliance or the Star Fort. After the things were settled, their eyes were glued on the cold corpse. Approached strange old Fort Master. Alliance Fort Master Suhan. Congratulations on your great advancement. Strange old snake congratulated Jian Wushuang, shocked and horrified. Earlier, after Jian Wushuang took away all the treasures and Foe's refused to join hands with him, he set his gaze on the Star Fort fierce battle against Foe appeared on the corners of his mouth. Jian Wushuang managed to behead Foe. The perfectly integrated huge golden was extremely shocked, and Star Armor Jian Wushuang instantly was much stronger than him since Jian Wushuang managed to kill Foe. Jian Wushuang commanded as his figure skimmed forward. Therefore, many Sword Alliance experts who were at the side were the fastest to react again, especially the Divine Sword Army. On the contrary, the almost 100 Heaven Ultimate Gods from the Divine Sword Army attacked the Star Fort. Humble as I didn't do Long Shan's guidance. Strange old snake after was embarrassed. Jian Wushuang taking action. He knew he did not help much. Kill. All he had done was just blocking Foe monstrous for a short moment in the beginning. The Star Fort experts panicked and were horrified. In the end, Jian Wushuang called the shots himself. Fort Master is dead. Anyway, we'll be dead if we don't make a run to stop Foe for a while. The high-level Star Fort experts had come for the battle. Now that I've killed a large number of many of the Star Fort experts, they were initially able to fight against the Divine Sword Army. Sword Alliance can take over the Star Fort's but they were stunned by Jian Wushuang's terrifying strength. Star Fort is originally a top second-rated force who aren't too far from first-rated forces. The experts were frantically escaping of the Sword Alliance, and so were their peak estimated to be comparable to some the fastest first-rated forces. Escape. After Star Fort, Gumo's eyes turned red as he fled, integrated into overwhelmed by a wave of feelings. The only area where lacking is probably a little more than a year ago, Ultimate God and he killed the Fort Master, who had just improved tremendously in strength today. I'd like to invite you to join Sword Alliance. His progress is way too fast and scary. I wonder if you're willing to accept my invitation. I need to quickly run away. The terrified Guemo had forgotten about his hatred for Jian Wushuang. He had forgotten how elder brother Shurimo had died in Jian Wushuang's hands. He no longer wanted to avenge his brother, but only to escape from Dragon City. The further the better. However, a phantom-like figure appeared in front of him, just when he took his first few steps. It was Jian Wushuang. You, Guemo stared wide-eyed at Jian Wushuang. He Palace Master Guemo. You should stay here. Chapter 27:11. The First Elder. You want me to join the Sword Alliance? Strange Old Snake was surprised. Jian Wushuang looked at Strange Old Snake expectantly. Although Jian Wushuang's strength had completely surpassed Strange Old Snake, he needed more high-level combat power if Sword Alliance were to continue its expansion. Jian Wushuang could not rely on himself alone, so he had to find ways to recruit more experts. Strange Old Snake was very powerful even among primary-level Grand Ultimate Gods, and naturally fell within Jian Wushuang's recruitment target. Strange Old Snake pondered for a moment and smiled. I agree to join the Sword Alliance. Jian Wushuang was a little surprised as he knew a little about Strange Old Snake. Free-spirited lone rangers like Strange Old Snake would not easily join any forces. There were many first-rated forces in Danyang continent, including some top forces that tried to win Strange Old Snake over. But he bluntly rejected the force's generous offers. Jian Wushuang did not have high expectations for Strange Old Snake to accept his invitation, and only thought of just trying it out. Unexpectedly, Strange Old Snake agreed. He agreed with alacrity before Jian Wushuang even offered him anything. He made the decision quite hastily, didn't he? Alliance Master. I'll never regret it since I've agreed to join Sword Alliance. I'll accept the tasks you assign to me from now on, said Strange Old Snake. Jian Wushuang felt even weirder to hear his reassurance and said, in that case, you will be the first elder in Sword Alliance from today onwards, Strange Old Snake. Your position is second only to me, and has the same level as Sheener, our chief steward. Sword Alliance will try our best to get it for you should you need any resources in the future, explained Jian Wushuang. Thank you, Alliance Master. Strange Old Snake nodded joyfully. Strange Old Snake was indeed a lone ranger, as Jian Wushuang said. He did not like to join any forces and preferred to be free. However, his personality was not the main factor that determined his behavior, but his extreme concern over the benefits he could gain. Benefits were more important than anything. He would join a force and perform any given tasks if the benefits offered were sufficiently attractive. The forces that previously sent out invitations to him offered attractive benefits, but those benefits did not appeal to him at all. In short, he was not impressed by their offers. On the other hand, the Sword Alliance was different. Jian Wushuang was different, to be precise. He saw Jian Wushuang's huge potential and bright future. There's no doubt that Jian Yi is a real demon, a superior demon. I'm afraid that even the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, which was known as a place where geniuses gathered in the 9 realms of Golden Crow, may not have such a super genius. At least I've never heard of one. Which peak heaven ultimate god in Dragon Phoenix Pavilion could kill a grand ultimate god? Strange Old Snake muttered to himself. The gap between heaven ultimate god and grand ultimate god was too big. The peak heaven ultimate god demonic genius in Dragon Phoenix Pavilion could probably compete with an ordinary primary level grand ultimate god, but that was about it. There was no chance of a peak heaven ultimate god demonic genius to defeat a primary level grand ultimate god. Strange Old Snake was surprised to see Jian Wushuang manage to mercilessly behead a top primary level grand ultimate god with his own eyes. Jian Wushuang's ability to go beyond his cultivation realm was truly terrifying. It was the reason that convinced Strange Old Snake about Jian Wushuang's great potential. A potential so great that it was terrifying. In addition, Jian Wushuang was not only an exceptionally strong talent, but also very smart when taking action. In just 2 to 3 years, he managed to create such a large sword alliance to the point he could take over the Star Fort and become a first-rated force. I've always been very good at reading people. From what I see, Jian Yi is impeccable in terms of his talent, strength, and the way he carried out his actions. He also has a special relationship with Crimson Stone Fort. I'm sure he can do a lot of things in the Danyang continent within an extremely short time. He might even change the situation in the Danyang continent. I can even see Crimson Stone Saint's shadow in him. Strange Old Snake was extremely excited. The founder of Crimson Stone Fort, Crimson Stone Saint, was the former ruler of the Danyang continent. Many years ago, Crimson Stone Fort rose to the top in an extremely short period, with its influence spread across the region, and finally occupied a great deal of Danyang Holy Domain. Crimson Stone Saint was so prestigious at that time. Strange Old Snake had regretted being too weak with talents that did not appeal to Crimson Stone Saint, so he could not get a place in Crimson Stone Fort. Strange Old Snake could see Jian Wushuang would be the second Crimson Stone Saint. No, Jian Wushuang was even better than the Crimson Stone Saint. Strange Old Snake did not think it was a disadvantage for him to be under such a super genius leadership. Instead, he thought it was a huge advantage because he was the first Grand Ultimate God to be Jian Wushuang's follower. Jian Wushuang would then pay more attention to him, allowing him to reap greater benefits when Jian Wushuang rises rapidly in the future. Therefore, he did not need Jian Wushuang to promise him anything and agreed with alacrity when Jian Wushuang invited him to join the Sword Alliance. As for Jian Wushuang, he felt strange that Strange Old Snake agreed too easily, but did not think much about it. After all, Strange Old Snake could no longer threaten him whether he had any thoughts of doing so. Dragon City had completely quieted down along with those Star Fort experts. Once everything had quieted down, Jian Wushuang then instructed Strange Old Snake to take the lead to set off with the Divine Sword Army and high-level Star Fort experts to lay claim over the Star Fort's territories. In the main hall of the Black Castle, Jian Wushuang was sitting there alone with an interspatial ring in his hand. The interspatial ring had been left behind by the deceased FOE. FOE was a genuine Grand Ultimate God expert, and also the leader of a top second-rated force. Jian Wushuang was looking forward to what he could find inside FOE's interspatial ring. I hope you won't let me down. Jian Wushuang's eyes twinkled excitedly and began to check the ring's contents. He found countless treasures and various cultivation resources. There were more than 2 billion and nearing 3 billion primordial stones in the interspatial ring. In addition, there were many divine elixir pills. He was indeed a wealthy Grand Ultimate God, as he had 4,000 divine elixir pills. Jian Wushuang grinned faintly. 4,000 divine elixir pills was a huge amount, as he had yet to collect that many divine elixir pills, even after destroying several third-rated forces. FOE had so many divine elixir pills because he was the leader of a top-tier second-rated force, as ordinary Grand Ultimate God would not have that many divine elixir pills. In the Danyang continent, it was already considered very good if an ordinary Grand Ultimate God had 1,000 divine elixir pills. Chapter 27:12. A big surprise. For example, Strange Old Snake was an extremely powerful primary-level Grand Ultimate God. However, he did not have many divine elixir pills. He had asked for 4,000 divine elixir pills when Palace Keeper Sijin contacted Strange Old Snake and asked him for help, which was a lot to ask for. After bargaining persistently, Palace Keeper Sijin offered Strange Old Snake 1,000 divine elixir pills and 2 billion primordial stones instead, which Strange Old Snake happily accepted. 1,000 divine elixir pills was a windfall for Strange Old Snake. On the other hand, there were some very poor Grand Ultimate Gods in Danyang Continent. Scorpion King was one of them. Scorpion King knew of Jian Wushuang's identity when he first saw Jian Wushuang in northern Darkstar territory. He also knew Jian Wushuang needed a lot of divine elixir pills, so he gave Jian Wushuang all the 50 divine elixir pills he had. Scorpion King was ranked top among the primary-level Grand Ultimate God, and was even a little better than FOE, but he only had 50 divine elixir pills, showing how poor he was. Of course, his wealth was attributable to Yin Suer's difficult situation, as Scorpion King had contributed his resources, including nearly all of his divine elixir pills, to Yin Suer, which left him poor. Jian Wushuang was surprised to be able to bag 4,000 divine elixir pills from FOE's interspatial ring. After that, Jian Wushuang continued to dig into the various treasures in the interspatial ring. There were countless treasures in FOE's interspatial ring. Among them were many mystical weapons, secret techniques, and a myriad of elixir pills. Jian Wushuang was casually browsing through the treasures, and something lying alone in the corner of the interspatial ring suddenly caught Jian Wushuang's attention. That is, Jian Wushuang's eyes widened in astonishment and disbelief. He then flipped his hands, and the item appeared in front of him. It was an ancient scroll with an archaic feel. Jian Wushuang's heart shook at the sight of the ancient scroll. He was so familiar with the scroll because he had an exactly similar one with him. Wow! A similar scroll that he owned appeared on his other palm when Jian Wushuang waved his hand again. The two scrolls were identical, such that even their spiritual aura was the same. Fengtian scroll. Jian Wushuang was shocked. It was a Fengtian scroll. Crimson Stone Saint gave Jian Wushuang a Fengtian scroll in the saint's tomb. It was exactly due to the Fengtian scroll that Jian Wushuang had promised Crimson Stone Saint to help Yin Suer to relieve the tormenting situation afflicting her. Crimson Stone Saint said the Fengtian scroll was extremely precious and had paid a hefty price back then to obtain the scroll. However, Jian Wushuang had just taken out another Fengtian scroll from FOE's interspatial ring. Let's check if this is the Fengtian scroll. Jian Wushuang immediately opened the scroll while trying to control his excitement. A huge stellar map instantly appeared in front of him. There were light spots on the stellar map like dazzling stars moving slowly. Jian Wushuang carefully meditated upon it and could feel the vast expanse of heaven and earth from the star map. This is indeed a real Fengtian scroll. Jian Wushuang was overjoyed. Fengtian scroll was a very rare treasure. Jian Wushuang had been relying on meditating upon the Fengtian scroll to improve his cultivation, and was progressing at an astonishing speed. He heard from Crimson Stone Saint that there were many Fengtian scrolls, and each of them was extremely precious. It would be of great use to any cultivator if they were able to have 3 scrolls at once, even for one at the Undying Saint realm. Jian Wushuang had no idea what would happen if he obtained 3 Fengtian scrolls, but he was certain that even a single scroll had tremendous benefits. It was unexpected he would obtain a second Fengtian scroll from FOE's interspatial ring. How could this be? The Fengtian scroll is so precious that even Crimson Stone Saint was struggling to get only one of it. Yet FOE is just a primary-level Grand Ultimate God. How did he get his hands on it? Jian Wushuang was confused. Unfortunately, he could not find the answers because FOE had passed away. Well, it doesn't matter how he got it. This Fengtian scroll is now mine. Adding in the one I previously obtained from Crimson Stone Saint, I now have 2 scrolls with me. Jian Wushuang's eyes gleamed excitedly. One scroll is already so useful. I wonder what will happen if I have 2 scrolls. Jian Wushuang was looking forward to finding it out. He then opened up both Fengtian scrolls at the same time with a wave of his hand. Instantly, two huge and wonderful star maps appeared concurrently in front of Jian Wushuang. Both star maps started merging into one in the blink of an eye, forming a more complete star map that covered a larger area. At the same time, the cosmic mystery within the star map became even more abstruse than before, such that its abstruseness had been multiplied by several folds. Jian Wushuang tried to understand the cosmic mysteries and tried to meditate upon the scrolls. He discovered his speed of gaining insights was several times faster than before. Jian Wushuang was stoked to make the discovery. The best thing about the Fengtian scroll was the cosmic mystery within. He could use it to improve his understanding of laws and sword principles at a faster pace using such a method. He had been doing that all along, and it helped him to improve his understanding of laws and sword principles at a rapid speed. In just a few decades, he had reached his current achievement. The progress of his meditation was already very fast. Could he possibly be even faster? How incredible would that be? The heaven and earth's laws, not to mention the sword principles, were deep and profound, which became more difficult as I progressed further. My current understanding of the laws and principles is still at peak heaven ultimate God level, and I already find it much harder than before. I've obtained the second Fengtian scroll today, hence my speed of gaining insight will increase once again, and with that my progress will then. Jian Wushuang clasped his hands together tightly in excitement. Accumulation of divine power was not difficult for any cultivators, as it merely needed time. Some people with prominent and resourceful backgrounds could absorb and refine primordial stones or divine elixir pills to enhance their divine power. It might be easy to improve one's divine power, but increasing one's understanding of the laws and principles was not as easy. Many people were stuck at bottlenecks, such that their progress remained stagnant for thousands of years at times, just like what FOE had gone through before. The best way to make a breakthrough was using the Fengtian scroll. It was very important for Jian Wushuang to improve his understanding of the laws and principles. Chapter 27:13. Famous across Danyang. I managed to kill Foe in the battle because of my various strong secret techniques. Our Namu Palace has a tactical understanding with the divine him when it comes down to life and death laws and principles. And Dongfang clan. This is also my most urgent issue. Now is to recuperate this second and build our strength. Scroll had appeared at the same time. We need to try our best to maintain the situation of the Danyang could only rise in an unscrupulous manner balance is with his understanding of laws. We shall then wait as the Crimson Stone Fort leading the way. Constantly let me start meditating following their internal factions continuous fights and started meditating with situation. The Crimson Stone Fort Snake was leading the Divine Sword Army to take over all the territories Star Fort previously controlled. Our opportunity will arise by then. The Namu Palace experts' some of the Star Fort's upper management surrendered. It was on the other hand, Namu Palace, those who did not the other top-rated forces, hence the remaining people dared not fight back, allowing the Sword Alliance to take over all of Star Fort's territories. As they had never been affected hence, with ease, had been recuperating, Star Fort was one of the top second-rated forces. Although the Sword Alliance is developing so speedily right now, the news about unable to affect the current situation and Star Fort being taken over balance the entire Danyang continent right now. Suhan's name, we don't need to pay much attention to the entire Danyang this Sword Alliance Master Suhan everybody soon learned really about how Suhan had the combat we can send somebody to contact him and learn about his background being a mere peak and heaven ultimate god. Apart from join that, the Namu he even killed Star Fort Master the burly middle-aged man. Suhan was known as both a genius and devilish. The experts from the Namu Palace had gained a reputation across the Danyang continent. Their sect master was also standing in a grand hall. Had gained the attention of various forces in the Danyang continent as a first-rate force at this moment. In that so they aren't qualified enough to get my attention. A strong force after all. As long as this force doesn't continue to cause any huge problems to form the highly competitive Divine Sword Army. Them. On top of having destroyed it when they threatened to destroy the Danyang continent's balance, God, Old Snake. Every power force on the Danyang continent for the Sword Alliance top forces to become a first-rate learned about the Sword Alliance taking over all the territories and heard of belonging to Star Fort. However, although there were many second-rated and third-rated forces on the Danyang continent, there were not many first-rated forces, and the situation was very complicated. While there were also a burly middle-aged man wearing a loose and luxurious robe for forces to rise and fall with a serious expression on his face. The force that was being taken over was only a second-rated force, tapping the armchair, and not even considered the burly middle-aged man. Therefore, it did not affect the entire situation, and also the publicly recognized first-ranked expert on Danyang continent. Suhan of the Sword Alliance balance. I wonder where this Suhan came from to enter into as he has some useful methods with that incident. The Sword Alliance had only been formed for merely much importance on him at that moment, and they're now turning into a first-rated to pay much attention since they had already taken over Star Fort. However, that was what Jian Wuxuang wanted. The burly middle-aged man had a cold expression on his face. Suddenly opened his eyes. Although the Sword Alliance developed so speedily, was killed by somebody. They're still quite far away from becoming a first-rated force. The Thin Elder had just received news about that, but immediately so there's no need to bother them right now. The item that once belonged to urgent to will land into Suhan's hand still the Crimson Stone Fort. The moment Crimson Stone Fort Suhan has any idea what that item is, nor will he know about its uses, was not the only one turning cold. That'll be quite troublesome. The expressions of the Thin Elder was still deep in his sitting at the bottom also had suddenly changed as several messages were transmitted to him. The Crimson Stone Fort has been aloof for too long. The Thin Elder took the message token right now and glanced at it before smiling helplessly. A starved camel really know how to divert their responsibilities away still can't and directly pass this troublesome matter to me. The burly middle-aged man understood that fact clearly. When those people are much stronger than me? The Crimson Stone Fort was still very strong despite having declined. I shall personally go and meet Alliance Master Suhan. The Crimson Stone Fort seemed helpless. The Thin Elder because they were made up of many factions with non-stop internal fights. The fact remains that Crimson Stone Fort's power at that moment was still much stronger Star Fort than the had been completely taken over by the Sword Alliance. There was some trouble during the annexation process, as the Star Fort had such a big territory, which attracted the interest of many forces. However, those who coveted the territories were some second-rated forces with none from first-rate. Therefore, there was no need for Jian Wuxuang to take action toward those second-rated forces. The Divine Sword Army under Old Snake's leadership was sufficient to easily get rid of them. Most second-rated forces did not have a grand ultimate god, who personally attended to them after all. Jian Wuxuang gradually calmed down after could not turn away the grand ultimate king. He needed some time to slowly digest and increase
so
his
he
strength.
immediately asked
Dragon City was
to
still
invite
the
the
Sword
Devilish Wind
Alliance's
King
lair.
into the fort.
A thin elder had already appeared in the void above the Dragon City
in the Grand Hall.
The Sword Alliance Master is
Greetings,
in that
Alliance
city.
Master
The
Suhan.
thin elder looked
Nice
at
to
the
meet
huge
you.
black-colored
The
fort
Devilish
from
Wind
above
King
the
was
void,
very humble
as
when
he
he met
slowly
Jian
descended
Wuxuang,
downward,
and even
with an
lowered his
indifferent
stance.
smile on his face.
Devilish Wind King,
the thin elder
you're
was
being
stopped
too
by
courteous.
several guards at the
Please
fort's
take a
entrance.
seat.
As soon
Jian
as he
Wuxuang
arrived,
waved his hand
please
to
send
gesture
somebody
for
to announce
Xiaotianxin
that the
and
Devilish
the
Wind
others to
King is
leave.
here to pay
Soon,
Alliance Master
only
Suhan
both
a
Jian
visit.
Wuxuang and
The
Devilish
thin
Wind
elder
King were
smiled
left
while
in the hall.
exposing his divine
I wonder
power.
why you're personally
The guards
here?
at the entrance were
Jian
shocked
Wuxuang
when
when
they
felt
felt
his
his
wave
wave
of
of divine
divine
power.
I'm here for a
Mister,
reason.
please hold
It
on
has
as we
something to do
immediately
with
go
FOE
in and make the
said the
announcement.
Devilish Wind King.
One of the guards
FOE.
immediately entered
Jian
to make the
Wuxuang
report.
slightly squinted.
In the secret
Don't
chamber,
worry, Alliance
Jian
Master
Wuxuang had
Suhan.
been sitting there
I don't
with
have
both
any
Feng Tian
relationship with
scrolls
FOE,
opened in front
so
of
I
him.
won't cause any
His
trouble to
meditating
the
sword
Speed
was
Alliance
much
due to
faster
his death.
compared to previously.
Apart from that,
as he
I
borrowed
won't
both
be able
Feng
to either
Tian
while you're
scrolls
here
during
even
his
if I
meditation.
wanted. My
The Devilish
understanding
Wind
towards
King
the
had a
first
gentle
stage
smile on his
transmigration
face.
law has reached
Frankly
an exceptional
speaking,
state since
I'm
long
here for a
ago,
special
and
item
am
in
only one
FOE's
step away from the
interspatial ring.
second stage.
Special item?
However,
Jian
after
Wuxuang was
meditating with
shocked.
both Feng
He
Tian scrolls
subconsciously
during
thought
this
about the
period,
Feng Tian scroll.
I feel we'll be able to
However,
achieve the second
the
level
Devilish Wind King
transmigration law
continued.
soon.
Alliance
Mumbled
Master
Jian
Suhan,
Wuxuang as he was
you'll
secretly
naturally
happy
take over
about this.
FOE's
At this
interspatial
moment,
ring,
since
Master
you've killed
Master.
him, I'm sure
Xiao
you've checked the
Taixin's
ring in
voice
detail,
could be heard from
but I'm
outside
afraid
the
you've
secret
missed
chamber
something extremely
and
special
interrupted
in
Jian
the
Wuxuang's
interspatial
meditation.
What
Jian
is it?
Wuxuang opened his eyes
asked
and looked
without
towards
reacting
the door.
much. Shiner,
It's
what
a
is
common-looking
it?
small-sized broken black
somebody
sword,
who addresses
said
himself
the
as Devilish Wind King,
a broken
is
black
asking
sword.
to meet you.
Jian
Apart
Wuxuang
from that,
relaxed slightly.
He seems to be
He
a grand
originally thought
ultimate
the
god
Devilish
from the
Wind
divine
King was
power
there
he revealed
because of the Feng
said
Tian
Xiao
scroll.
Tianxin.
However,
Wuxuang's
it looked
facial
like it was not the
expression
case,
changed
as he
Jian
realized Xiao
Wuxuang
Taixin's
immediately
reason
started
for
looking for the
interrupting
broken
him
black
while
sword
he was
mentioned by
meditating
the
in
Devilish
retreat.
Wind King.
It turns out a
FOE's
grand ultimate
interspatial
god
ring
was there to
and found
personally
it within
visit him.
minutes. Devilish
A broken
Wind King,
black sword the
Jian
size of his
Wuxuang
palm
squinted
appeared
slightly
in his
as he had
palm
never
with
heard
a
of
flip
that
of his
name.
hand. However,
Devilish Wind
Old
King,
Snake should know
is
who
this
that
the
was.
broken sword you
Jian
mentioned?
Wuxuang immediately
Jian
sent a
Wuxuang
message to
asked.
Old Snake.
Yes, this is
Jian
it.
Wuxuang had
The Devilish
previously
Wind
ordered
King's
Old
eyes
Snake
burned with
to lead
passion
the
while being
divine sword
fixated
army
on the broken
and take
black
over
sword.
Star Fort.
Jian
Although
Wuxuang
Star
also
Fort
noticed
had
his
been taken
burning
over
interest
at that
in the
moment.
sword.
However,
Their
he
territories
was
were not
puzzled at the
completely
bottom of
under
his
the
heart.
Sword Alliance's
He also
control
noticed
yet.
that broken
Hence
black
Old
sword
Snake
had
when he took a look in
remained
FOE's
there. Old Snake quickly
interspatial ring,
responded after
but did not
receiving
care
Jian
much about
Wuxuang's
it,
message
because there was nothing
Devilish Wind
special
King?
about that broken
I know
sword.
about him.
He even
and
felt
had
it was
once
just a
interacted
common
with
item.
him.
He
He
might
might
not
not
have
have
taken
primary
that
level
broken
grand
sword
ultimate
as something
god,
precious
whose power
if
could
the
only be
Devilish Wind
considered
King
common
had
among
not come
primary
to
level
visit
grand
him,
ultimate
and
gods.
might have gotten rid of the
However,
broken
he's
sword
very
together
cunning and good at
with the
preserving
huge
his
amount
own
of
life.
supplies he had.
The Devilish Wind
King
can be considered
What's so
one of the
special about
hardest
this
to
broken
deal with
black
among
sword?
the lone experts
Jian
that
Wuxuang
travel
asked.
in the Danyang continent.
Really,
The
Jian
Devilish Wind
Wuxuang's
King
facial
took a deep
expression
inhale
changed
and said with a
he
smile,
realized from Old
Alliance
Snake's
Master
words
Suhan,
that the Devilish Wind
this
King
broken sword is
could
not
be
a precious
considered a
item,
representative
as it's
character.
only made of common
However,
materials.
he had no
Those who
idea
don't
why
know
the
its
Devilish
true
Wind
profound
King
mystery
visited him will take it as a common item and dispose of it. However, this broken sword has a significant meaning. The reason is that it's an entry token to a secret realm. Chapter 27:15. Token of the Secret Realm. An entry token to the secret realm? Jian Wushuang was stunned. There were two types of secret realms. One of them was a naturally formed cosmic secret realm that normally had free spirits living in them and was considered a small world. These secret realms were mostly extraordinarily valuable because these cosmic secret realms contain different elements compared to the ancient god domain. The appearance of a cosmic secret realm, as such, would draw the attention of many experts. The other type of secret realm was those created by cultivators. Just like in his past life, there were many secret realms created by cultivators when Jian Wushuang was in the eternal chaotic world. However, there were no will of heavenly way in the eternal chaotic world, allowing the opening up of secret realms there to be extremely easy. However, it was different in the ancient god domain. The ancient god domain was controlled by the will of heavenly way, and the space was extremely stable. There was a huge requirement toward a person's strength to open a secret realm under such circumstances. At the very least, normal cultivators such as ultimate gods could not do that. Even an undying saint was not capable of doing so. But there were still some possibilities for those top-notched or strongest undying saints. The secret realm that Devilish Wind King mentioned needed an entry token falls to the second type, which was created by cultivators. A secret realm created by cultivators was extremely valuable. The person who created the secret realm might have left many blessings and precious items inside the secret realm. Such a secret realm was extremely attractive to cultivators. Devilish Wind King, you're saying this broken sword is a token to enter a secret realm? Jian Wushuang stared at the Devilish Wind King. Yes, this secret realm has never been disclosed and almost nobody knew about it. The secret realm contains all sorts of blessings, with most of them being well preserved, said the Devilish Wind King. Most of them being well preserved? Does this mean that a part of the blessings has been obtained by others? Somebody had previously entered the secret realm? Jian Wushuang could not help but frown. Somebody had entered the realm. Otherwise, how will I know that this broken sword is the token to the secret realm? The Devilish Wind King smiled and continued speaking. In truth, this broken black sword is the token of the secret realm, but it's not the only token, as there are 6 pieces, with this being one of the pieces that form a long sword. I also have one of the pieces with me. The Devilish Wind King also took a similar broken black sword out with a flip of his hand. Jian Wushuang's facial expression darkened when he saw the broken black sword in Devilish Wind King's hand. This is nothing, as the token to the secret realm was a complete divine sword. I'm the one who initially obtained it, said the Devilish Wind King with a smile. You're the one who obtained it? Jian Wushuang's facial expression changed. Although I've obtained the complete token and found the secret realm based on the token's guidance, the secret realm was extremely dangerous, while I'm just an ordinary primary level grand ultimate god. So I did not manage to travel far before directly retreated, and later on gathered a group of not many helpers. I only gathered 5 grand ultimate gods, and the 6 of us once again entered the secret realm to explore the place. The 6 of us worked together this time, and managed to obtain some rewards from the secret realm, said the Devilish Wind King with a smile. FOE is one of your helpers? Jian Wushuang asked. Yes, he's one of the helpers I've employed, and who also obtained a precious item from the secret realm. It seemed to be a special scroll, but I have no idea what use is that scroll. As for the others, they've gotten something for themselves too, said the Devilish Wind King. Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes. He finally knew the reason FOE owned a Fengtian scroll. It turns out he gained them from a special secret realm. That secret realm was created by a super expert and seemed to contain all sorts of precious items that one had the opportunity to obtain inside the realm, to the extent it seemed normal for FOE to get his hands on 1 or 2 Fengtian scrolls. What happened then? Jian Wushuang looked at the Devilish Wind King. The 6 of us originally went on an adventure together. However, we met with an extremely dangerous situation before we reached the secret realm's internal area, and the 6 of us could only escape. In the end, all 6 of us had a difficult time leaving the place and were badly wounded. We were in bad shape after leaving the secret realm, hence we did not enter the place again. Instead, we made a promise to re-enter this realm again after 50 years, when our strength has almost recovered. Apart from that, the token that was originally mine was also broken into 6 pieces under the request. No, under those 5 people's coerce with everyone holding on to one of the pieces. None of us 6 can enter this secret realm on our own under such circumstances. We can only go together if we want to enter the realm. In addition, we made a pact not to tell anybody about the secret realm, said the devilish Wind King. Jian Wushuang finally understood what was going on when he heard that. He also knew the devilish Wind King's purpose of coming to see him. Alliance Master Su Han, the secret realm can only be opened after we've collected all 6 pieces of the token. The broken sword piece that once belonged to FOE is now in your possession as you've killed him. Hence the others contacted me after they learned of this news, and asked me to personally contact you about this matter. You can sell this broken black sword token to us if you're willing. We'll be able to give you a satisfactory price with the 5 of us working together. Besides that, Alliance Master Su Han can also replace FOE and choose to wander the secret realm with us. However, the prerequisite condition is that you cannot tell anyone about this, or all 5 of us will do our best to kill you. Although I'm not extremely strong, and I can't do anything to you, the other 4 aren't easy to deal with, and are capable of killing you, said the devilish Wind King seriously. Jian Wushuang smiled quietly and said, I understand. I'm very interested in the secret realm, since it's so wonderful, and won't miss this opportunity since it has been offered to me. What you meant to say is that you're joining us on an adventure in the secret realm the next time we enter the realm. Of course. Jian Wushuang nodded with a smile on his face. If that's the case, I hope Alliance Master Su Han will keep your promise, and not tell others about this. Erase my token. The last time we entered the secret realm was 20 years ago, and there are another 30 years before we enter the secret realm again. You can prepare yourself well within these 30 years. I'll notify you with this token when the time comes, said the devilish Wind King. Thank you. Jian Wushuang smiled and took the token. The devilish Wind King did not continue to linger and soon left. Jian Wushuang slightly squinted as he saw the devilish Wind King leaving. Jian Wushuang mumbled, This devilish Wind King is extremely cunning. I wonder if the secret realm he mentioned is real or not. No matter which it is, there are still 30 years left. We'll see it after 30 years. Chapter 27:16. Got it. 30 years was a short time for most cultivators, as the time would just fly by. However, 30 years was a long time for Jian Wushuang's lifetime. After all, he had barely experienced 100 years since he was reborn. 30 years was enough for him to greatly improve himself, especially now that he had obtained the second Fengtian scroll. He was much faster compared to his previous speed in understanding the sword principle and laws. He would achieve a higher level in his understanding of law or perception toward the sword principle after 30 years, with such speedy understanding, and would be much stronger compared to his current self. He was not afraid even if there was something wrong with what the devilish Wind King had said. A secret realm. I have to visit the secret realm if what the devilish Wind King said is true. And Fo really obtained his Fengtian scroll from the secret realm, mumbled Jian Wushuang. However, he soon returned to his secret chambers and started meditating in retreat again. Time flew by. In the blink of an eye, 5 years had passed. The Sword Alliance had completely stabilized and became one of the first-rated forces publicly recognized by all forces in the Danyang continent within those 5 years. In the secret chamber, Jian Wushuang was still focused on understanding the laws and sword principle. Suddenly, Jian, come over to the sacred palace. Palace Keeper Xizhen sent a message to him. Jian Wushuang immediately opened his eyes, but a smile appeared on his face. It's finally done? Jian Wushuang knew the reason Palace Keeper Xizhen asked for him. There was a huge possibility that his royal blood gem had been dealt with. A 230 caddies of royal blood gem was too expensive, and it would have been difficult for even Yin Sewer from the Crimson Stone Fort to handle. It naturally took more time. Jian Wushuang immediately left his secret chamber and headed for the sacred palace. Jian Wushuang met Palace Keeper Xizhen once he arrived at the sacred palace. Palace Keeper Xizhen had a smile on his face when he saw Jian Wushuang, before immediately taking an interspatial ring out. This is what you previously mentioned, 10,000 pieces of divine elixir pills and 100 billion primordial stones, all of which are in this interspatial ring. Apart from that, the selling price was much higher than the items you asked for because your royal blood gem is extremely valuable, and the fort master sold it to someone who happened to need it. Hence the fort master gave you another 2,000 pieces of divine elixir pills and 20 billion primordial stones. Jian Wushuang's eyes immediately lit up and took the interspatial ring to have a closer look. There were indeed 12,000 divine elixir pills and 120 billion primordial stones in the interspatial ring. It was a huge amount of money, something any top force in the Danyang continent would not ignore. However, it was obvious the price Yin Sewer sold for was much more than those for her to be so generous. Palace Keeper Xizhen, can you tell me who the fort master sold the royal blood gem to? Jian Wushuang asked curiously. Palace Keeper Xizhen said the other person happened to need the royal blood gem, and the royal blood gem was the main ingredient to cultivate holy treasures. The person who purchased it must be at least an undying saint, right? This, Palace Keeper Xizhen was quiet for a short moment before he said with a smile. It's all right, there's no need to hide matters from you. The fort master sold the royal blood gem to Master Mo. Master Mo? An undying saint? Jian Wushuang continued to ask. He's an extremely strong undying saint. Apart from that, Master Mo still has another extremely special identity. The first-ranked craftmaster in the 9 realms of Golden Crow. Palace Keeper Xizhen said with a hint of respect. Jian Wushuang was startled when he heard that. The first-ranked craftmaster in the 9 realms of Golden Crow? Although his Blood Mountain sword was his life-divine weapon, it did not fully integrate with his perfect chaotic creature's blood essence, so it had failed to completely unleash its power. Therefore, he had always wanted to search for a strong craftmaster to retemper with his Blood Mountain sword and complete that step. Unfortunately, the strongest craftmaster he met when he was in Wuxia Wilderness, Master Kuan, was just a 4th-grade craftmaster. He tried his best and successfully crafted the golden glass armor. However, he was not qualified to retemper the Blood Mountain sword. Master Kuan also mentioned back then that it was impossible to retemper the Blood Mountain sword without a peak 7th-grade craftmaster. However, how could it be easy to find a peak 7th grade craftmaster? Palace Master Sijin. Master Mo's craftsmanship level must be extremely high since he's the first-ranked craftmaster in the 9 realms of Golden Crow. However, I wonder what level of a craftmaster he is at right now. Jian Wushuang asked. I don't know his exact level, but I know there are only 2 other well-known craftmasters in the 9 realms of Golden Crow apart from Master Mo. Those 2 have achieved the 7th grade craftmaster level, but are still very much behind when compared to Master Mo. Hence Master Mo might be a peak 7th grade craftmaster, or an 8th grade craftmaster, said Palace Keeper Sijin. Peak 7th grade and possibly an 8th grade? Jian Wushuang's body shook as he felt a wave of happiness surging through his heart. Undoubtedly, Master Mo was the craftmaster he was searching for to retemper his Blood Mountain sword. However, a happy surprise was just a happy surprise. He knew that he was still very weak and unqualified to meet Master Mo. Even if he successfully found Master Mo would not even glance at him. A young man who was not even a grand ultimate god. Even Yin Suer, the Crimson Stone Fort Master, also needed to do something special if she wanted to meet Master Mo. In addition, it also depended on whether Master Mo was in the mood and had the time to meet her. There's no rush as it's nice to know about the existence of Master Mo at this junction. It's not too late to ask for a meeting with Master Mo when my strength has grown and power increased, thought Jian Wushuang to himself. Jian Wushuang did not linger and returned to the Sword Alliance after he received the interspatial ring from Palace Keeper Sijin. He then sent a large number of primordial stones to Xiao Tiexin, the Sword Alliance's chief steward. The speedy development of the Sword Alliance was purely due to the huge amount of resources they poured into the alliance. Most of those resources originated from the 10 billion primordial stones Jian Wushuang previously received from Palace Keeper Sijin. However, those 10 billion primordial stones were almost gone at that time with the gradual formation of the Divine Sword Army. However, he still had 120 billion primordial stones with him at the moment. The Divine Sword Army could continue expanding since he still had so many resources. As for Jian Wushuang, he continued his retreat and started refining those divine elixir pills. He obtained 12,000 divine elixir pills from Palace Keeper Sijin, and when adding together with the 4,000 pills he obtained from FOE, he had a total of 16,000 pills at that moment. I might be able to make a breakthrough in my realm by the time the secret realm opens, since I have so many divine elixir pills with me, Jian Wushuang mumbled as he closed his eyes and started training. Chapter 27:17. Gather spring passed and winter arrived and 25 years had passed in the blink of an eye. The Danyang continent had remained in a balance during that period, as there were not any huge fights. The top forces were still accumulating their strength and waiting for an opportunity. As for the Crimson Stone Fort, the 7 factions were still fighting among themselves. However, Yin Suer had a huge amount of resources after she successfully sold the Royal Blood Gem, and had been continuously attracting experts with the help of those resources, so the pressure she faced had been tremendously reduced. She was in a far less passive position in the situation she was facing. On the other hand, the Sword Alliance had been recruiting during that time period, but they had not continued their expansion, as they too had been accumulating their
elder
power.
was standing there.
Apart from
as
that,
he waited in silence.
The Sword Alliance was
The
not
elder
only
was
a
the devilish
publicly
wind
recognized
king.
first-rated
Whoosh.
force,
A figure
but
came
was
gliding
also one
over
of the strongest
and arrived in
first-rated
front
forces.
of the devilish wind
the
king
highest
within
level
moments.
grand ultimate
Devilish
gods
wind
aside,
king.
I
The
hope I'm
amount
not
of
too
heaven
late.
ultimate gods
Jian
in the
Wushuang
Sword
had a
Alliance
smile
were
on
a
his
terrifying
face.
number.
No, the
You're
Divine
the
Sword
earliest
Army
to
alone
reach
had
this place
already
apart from
expanded
me.
to a total of
Devilish
500
wind king
people.
smiled.
All of
However,
those 500
he narrowed
people
his
were
eyes
heaven
in surprise
ultimate
when he
gods
suddenly
and
noticed
extremely
the divine
strong
power
they had
coming from
extremely
Jian
high
Wushuang.
combat power.
You've made a breakthrough?
As they knew how to
The
coordinate
devilish wind
between
king
military
focused
and
his
magic
gaze on Jian
formations.
Wushuang.
Jian
and
Wushuang
could feel that
spent a
Jian
huge
Wushuang's
amount of
divine
resources that
had
was
reached
enough
the
to cause
primary level
distress
grand
to any of
ultimate
the top
god
forces
from
during
his
the
original
army's
peak
formation.
heaven ultimate god.
However,
Haha.
Jian Wushuang
Luck
did
has
not
allowed
have
me
any
to make a
scruples
breakthrough
as he
a
had
short
not
while
planned
ago.
to stay for a long
Jian
time
Wushuang
in the
smiled
Danyang Holy
indifferently.
Domain.
It was
Therefore,
true that he had made
he
a
used
breakthrough,
all the resources
although
he had on
been
hand,
working on
as he did
understanding
not
the
care
law
much about
and sword
preservation.
principle.
None of the
these
top
30
forces
years
in the
secluded
Danyan continent
cultivation,
would dare put
he had
all their
also been
resources
cultivating
into
to
build an
increase his
army
divine
like him.
power.
The
The
combat
most
power
crucial
of the
point was
divine
the
sword army rose
16,000
speedily
divine
because
elixir
of that.
pills he obtained
As a
from
result,
Palace Keeper
only
Sijan
the
and
Crimson
FOE.
Stone official
He had
army from
successfully
Crimson Stone
refined all
Fort
those
was
pills.
slightly stronger
Therefore,
than the divine
his
sword
divine
army.
power had
It was
increased
estimated those
tremendously and
armies formed
successfully
by
achieved
other
the
top
high-level
forces
heaven
were at
ultimate
most the
god
same
realm.
level
His
as the
true
divine
realm
sword
was a
army.
high-level heaven
Jian
ultimate
Wuxuang
god,
was still
but his
understanding
divine
the laws
power had been
and sword
elevated by
principle
2 levels
with the
under
help
the
of
Black
Stone's
Stone's concealment,
scrolls in his
which was
secret
why the
chamber.
devilish wind king
Suddenly,
thought Jian
a
Wuxuang
message token
had
in his
already achieved the
interspatial
grand
ring slightly
ultimate god.
trembled. He was
Is it
able to
starting?
kill FOE
Jian
in
Wuxuang
one-to-one
immediately
combat
opened
30
his
years
eyes,
ago,
and
when
a
he had
wicked
not made a
smile appeared
breakthrough
at the corners
and
of
was
his
just a
mouth.
peak heaven
Jian
ultimate
Wuxuang
god.
immediately
Now that
left
he has
his
made a
retreat.
breakthrough in his
He then
realm
gathered Xiao
and really
Tiexin and the
achieved the
others.
grand ultimate
I need
god
to
realm.
go out and handle some
His strength
matters,
has
but
definitely
he'll be back
undergone
in a
some
short
changes.
while.
He must
Sheener,
have the
you
strength
shall be in
comparable
charge
to
of
a
every
high-level
matter in the
grand
Sword
ultimate
Alliance
god.
while I'm away.
The devilish wind
Jian
king
Wuxuang
could not
ordered.
help but think
Yes,
to himself.
master.
Devilish
Xiao
Wind
Tiexin
King
immediately
where are
nodded.
the other 4?
Sword Alliance's
Jian
top
Wuxuang
management
asked as he
experts
stood
such as
beside
Shang
the
Long,
devilish wind king.
Purple Dress House
Don't
Master,
worry, they will arrive
and Long
soon.
Shan looked at
The
each other,
devilish wind king
but dared
looked
not
forward
show
as
any
he
signs
spoke.
of displeasure.
Suddenly,
Xiao
two black
Tiexin was
dots
the one who
appeared at the
took
other
care of
end of
most
the void in
matters
front of
regarding
them.
the Sword
The
Alliance.
two of them are
When
here.
Jian Wuxuang
They must
was
have
in
traveled
retreat.
together.
Although Xiao
Said the
Tiexin was
devilish
not a
wind
powerful
king.
expert,
Jian Wuxuang
she had
also
good management
immediately
skills.
looked towards those 2
Apart
black
from
dots.
that,
Most
those
of the
2
Sword
dots
Alliance's
traveling speedily
resources
turned
were
out
under
to
her
be 2
control,
human figures,
and she had trained
appeared
many
in front
loyal
of them in the
experts.
blink of an eye.
She had
They
succeeded
were a
in
man
building
and a
her
woman.
prestige in the
The
Sword
man was
Alliance.
muscular and had
Nobody
messy
dared
red
to
hair,
say anything
while
when
both
the
his
Sword
facial
Alliance's
expression
matters
and
were
eyes were
handed over to
extremely
her.
fierce.
Sheener,
He crossed his
you need
arms
to be
around
careful
his
during
chest
this time when
and
I'm
gave
away.
others a
Try
feeling
your
that
best
he was
to reduce
extremely
the
rough.
collision between the
On the
Sword
other
Alliance
hand,
and
the
the
woman
first
appeared
rated
to be an
forces around
extremely
us.
delicate lady
Jian
in a
Wuxuang
purple
continued
dress
to
that
issue
made
orders.
people feel
Old
affectionate
Snake,
towards her.
assist her in every way possible.
Yes, master.
Xiao Tiexin and Old Snake continuously nodded. Jian Wuxuang was at ease with a strong primary-level grand ultimate god, such as Old Snake keeping watch, and his most trusted Sheener controlling everything else. He immediately made a move, in a void near to the edge of the Danyang continent. The purple-clad lady was extremely beautiful with her every move, having rippling effects on those people who saw her. However, Jian Wuxuang dared not look down at the both of them as he stood before them. It did not only apply to the rough and burly man, but also the beautiful purple-clad lady too. It was because he had discovered those two were emitting an extremely strong divine power. Their divine power was not something common primary-level grand ultimate gods had already surpassed primary-level grand ultimate gods. That man and woman pair were both high-level grand ultimate gods. Chapter 27:18. 6 People, Alliance Master Su Han. Allow me to make an introduction. These two are Grand Ultimate God Hong Chen and Long Xianzi. Both of them are unaffiliated experts. Introduced the Devilish Wind King. Greetings to the both of you. Jian Wushuang also greeted both of them modestly. Although he had never heard of their names, they should be strong as both were high-level Grand Ultimate Gods. Alliance Master Su Han, it's an honor to finally meet you. The purple-clad beautiful lady called Long Xianzi smiled softly. Grand Ultimate God Hong Chen, the rough-looking burly man, only glanced at Jian Wushuang coldly. There are 2 others who should be here soon, said the Devilish Wind King. Soon, the other 2 arrived one after the other. One of them was only a primary-level Grand Ultimate God poised young man. However, he possessed a strong aura. Jian Wushuang learned his name was Yi Shun under the Devilish Wind King's introduction, who was from a first-rated force. The last person was a tough and stockily built bald elder, who emitted a berserk aura. The bald elder's appearance caused a scary aura to come compressing towards them. His aura was extremely strong. It was much stronger compared to the others there, including Grand Ultimate God Hong Chen and Long Xianzi. He was known as Saber Master and came from Crimson Stone Fort. Crimson Stone Fort Saber Master? He's also one of the 6. Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes when he learned about the bald elder's identity. He knew of the Saber Master from previously reading information about some experts from Crimson Stone Fort in detail. There were 7 factions in the Crimson Stone Fort, and apart from 3 of the stronger factions, there were 4 smaller factions. All those 4 smaller factions were not weak, and had 2 to 3 Grand Ultimate Gods overseeing them, with Saber Master being one of the smaller faction's rulers. Jian Wushuang had once read the Saber Master's information in detail. His cultivation is that of a high-level Grand Ultimate God, and is extremely strong with his berserk saber skills. He's capable of being in the top 3 positions among high-level Grand Ultimate Gods in the Danyang continent. There were only a handful of peak Grand Ultimate Gods among the top forces and unaffiliated experts in the Danyang continent after all. Putting these peak Grand Ultimate Gods aside, the strongest experts were the high-level Grand Ultimate Gods. Saber Master was capable of being in the top 3 positions among high-level Grand Ultimate Gods, only meant he was capable of being placed in the top 10 positions in the entire Danyang continent. He was a true expert. He was much stronger compared to Grand Ultimate God Hong Chen and Long Xianzi, who were also high-level Grand Ultimate Gods. Saber Master looked at everybody present once he arrived, with his gaze finally stopping on Jian Wushuang. You're Su Han? Yes. Greetings to you, Saber Master. Jian Wushuang modestly presented himself. I've heard about you. Your sword alliance has recently developed very speedily, and can be considered quite strong among first-rated forces in the Danyang continent. However, you seem to be just a peak Heaven Ultimate God the last time I heard about you. Who knew you'll make a breakthrough to the Grand Ultimate God realm after 30 years? Your improvement rate is really great, said Saber Master. The people surrounding them also looked at Jian Wushuang. They noticed Jian Wushuang's divine power had elevated. Hence they no longer dared to look down on him. Jian Wushuang was the publicly recognized exceptional genius in the Danyang continent, who managed to even kill Foe when he was still in the peak Heaven Ultimate God realm after all. He must have grown even more powerful with him making a breakthrough. There was even a possibility he might not be weaker when compared to a high-level Grand Ultimate God. Alright, let's go now that everybody is here, said Saber Master. The group of 6 immediately started their journey. Jian Wushuang had no idea the exact location of the secret realm, so he could only follow those 5 Grand Ultimate Gods leading the way in front of him. During the journey, the Devilish Wind King glanced at Jian Wushuang and secretly sent him a message. Alliance Master Su Han will arrive at the secret realm's entrance shortly. Before that, there's something that I'd like to discuss with you. What is it? Jian Wushuang was slightly puzzled. What was it that he could not speak directly and had to secretly send messages? You've seen the strength of all 6 experts who know about the secret realm's location, and preparing to venture inside of it are hugely different. Some are strong while others are weak. For example, Saber Master is one of the publicly recognized top experts in the Danyang continent because of his extremely strong combat power. He alone is capable of fighting against 2 or perhaps even 3 high-level Grand Ultimate Gods at the same time. He'd win without a doubt if faced against a primary-level Grand Ultimate God, Devilish Wind King said. Jian Wushuang did not question that statement. It was true that Saber Master had the power to easily sweep away primary-level Grand Ultimate Gods. All of us have to be careful of Saber Master because he's too strong. After all, snatching for opportunities and precious items in the secret realm relies a lot on one's strength, and there isn't any fairness during the process. He has a huge chance of winning if there really is a fight over precious items. Even if the precious items landed in our hands instead of his, he can still force us to hand it over with his powerful strength. Devilish Wind King exclaimed. Jian Wushuang was not surprised when he heard that. The fight for precious items had always relied on a person's strength. Apart from that, fighting and killing over precious items was also a norm, although the 6 of them traveled and seemed to be working together as they wandered in the secret realm. However, the 6 of them would start fighting if they really encountered some wonderful opportunities or precious items. He's not the only one, as there's also Grand Ultimate God Hong Chun and Long Xianzi. All 3 of them are very much stronger high-level Grand Ultimate Gods compared to us. You, me, and Yishun are only primary-level Grand Ultimate Gods, and will be at a disadvantage when wandering the secret realm. You might be in a better position, as you can still defend yourself against Grand Ultimate God Hong Chun and Long Xianzi. However, both I and Yishun aren't capable of that. Hence we've agreed to work together during this journey in the secret realm. We shall advance and retreat together, while dividing any precious items or opportunities we obtained equally. I'm sending you a message now with hopes that you'll join us. If the 3 of us work together, we don't need to be afraid of Grand Ultimate God Hong Chun and Long Xianzi. How does that sound? Do you want to join us? The Devilish Wind King seriously asked, and looked at Jian Wushuang with a hint of expectation in his eyes. Jian Wushuang was quiet for some time before directly nodding. Sure. That's great. Although the 3 of us are only primary-level Grand Ultimate Gods, the 3 of them, Saber Master, Hong Chun and Long Xianzi, won't dare to be too forceful towards us if we work together. Devilish Wind King smiled while Yishun also looked over at them. It looked as though the 3 of them had achieved a mutual understanding. However, each of them had his hidden motives. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.